Chapter 1183. No, you haven't heard of ancient sage Qiu Wu's heavenly demon Great Sorrow Palm? Back then, unable to pay his final respects to his deceased mother due to compelling circumstances, ancient sage Qiu Wu created this technique out of deep sorrow. Due to the concept behind the technique, the heavenly demon Great Sorrow Palm is one of the few physical battle techniques that is able to phase a cultivator's soul. Legend has it that one of its moves consists of a palm art descending from the heavens, Zhang Jiuxiao quickly explained as he stared at the sight before him with the utmost shock. As an offspring of the Zhang clan, while the lacking purity of his bloodline made him unqualified to access the best cultivation resources within the clan, the experiences and relics that he had come into contact with in the Zhang clan still granted him knowledge and an eye of discernment far superior to the master teachers of the Qingyuan conferred empire. As one of the closest followers of Kong Shi, ancient sage Qiu Wu was indubitably a legendary figure of the master teacher pavilion. While the heavenly demon Great Sorrow Palm was not the strongest battle technique that he had created, the unique properties of the technique still made it rather well known. Hu. While Zhang Jiuxiao was explaining the palm art to the other master teacher, more and more power was gathering in front of Zhang Xian's palm, stirring up a mini tornado in the surroundings. Everyone could not help but retreat before the powerful air currents. A tree desires the calm, but the wind batters relentlessly. A child seeks to repay, but his parents wait not. Seemingly recognizing the move as well, Pavilion Master Go's body trembled in astonishment. The person whom he respected the most happened to be ancient sage Qiu Wu, so naturally, he knew about the heavenly demon Great Sorrow Palm as well. His mind was almost blown when he saw Zhang Xian executing the move. He had searched for ancient sage Qiu Wu's heritage for so many years, but to no avail. Who would have thought that the young man before him would be able to execute the battle techniques of his idol so easily, so smoothly, and so powerfully? Voila! In his moment of astonishment, the palm strike finally fell upon him. Zhang Xian possessed the eye of insight, and he had already achieved the level of infinitesimal maneuver as well. As such, he was able to grasp the flow of battle with perfect precision. It took a mere glance for him to notice the huge fluctuations in Pavilion Master Go's emotions, and he instinctively knew that this was the ideal opportunity for him to strike. Under the immense force of the palm strike, Pavilion Master Go's primordial spirit was forcefully struck back into his body before he retreated 8 steps back. His face reddened from the impact, and a mouthful of blood burst from his lips. That single palm strike had dealt considerable internal injuries to him. The leaving Aperture Realm Pavilion Master Go was actually injured by Zhang Shi. But there is a 3-realm difference between the two of them. To be able to bridge this gap and match Pavilion Master Go squarely, Zhang Shi is too formidable. The other master teachers did not recognize the heavenly demon Great Sorrow Palm, but upon seeing Pavilion Master Go getting injured from Zhang Xian's assault, their bodies could not help but stiffen in disbelief. To them, Pavilion Master Go was not only the most powerful expert of the Master Teacher Pavilion but a symbol of its invincibility as well. He was the sturdy pillar whom they could fall back on in times of crisis. Yet, in less than 3 blows, Zhang Xian had already managed to push him back and deal considerable internal injuries to him. This was an immense shock to all of them. It's fortunate that we listened earnestly to his lecture instead of challenging him, or else, we might have been lying on the floor at this very moment. Indeed. Thank God for Zhang Shi's magnanimity. Wiping the cold sweat off their foreheads, the master teachers patted their wildly beating chest in relief. Earlier, when they had submitted to Zhang Xian's impartation of heaven's will without putting up a fight, they had felt that they had let the master teacher pavilion down. However, the sight before them had dispelled the deep guilt within them. Against such strength, even if they had really challenged Zhang Xian, there was no doubt that they would have been defeated as well. Their involvement would not have made the slightest difference to the ultimate outcome. Your move. Frantically steadying his body, Pavilion Master Go swiftly suppressed his internal injuries before turning to Zhang Xian with an anxious look. He opened his mouth, wanting to ask the young man before him about the technique that he had just executed, but before he could finish his words, the young man had already charged up to him to continue his assault. This time, the young man's palm strike was much more powerful than before. While it was not augmented by the momentum of his descent, the might that it wielded did not pale in comparison at all. Humph, I'll take a look for myself to see if that is the real heavenly demon Great Sorrow Palm or not. Knowing that it would be fatal if he allowed himself to be distracted in battle, Pavilion Master Go swiftly put aside all of his miscellaneous thoughts and turned his attention back to the battle. Previously, he had been relying on the abilities unique to leaving Aperture Realm cultivators to deal with Zhang Xian, but this time, he wanted to rely on his own Jinqi and body and fight a proper battle with the other party. Placing his palms together before his chest, ripples of shockwaves began spreading out one after another from the meeting of his hands, inducing a deafening sonic boom. Saint Intermediate Tier Battle Technique, Myriad Waves, Layered Clouds. Legend had it that a master teacher had created this battle technique when inspiration struck him while studying the flow of water within a river. Ripples of shockwaves would burst forth relentlessly like the river that flowed tirelessly, overwhelming the surroundings through its multiple layers just like the clouds concealed the sky. Pavilion Master Go had devoted countless years of his life to refining this technique of his, and he had long achieved a high level of mastery in it. The myriad waves, layered clouds easily halted the advancement of Zhang Xian's heavenly demon Great Sorrow Palm, keeping it firmly at bay. However, Zhang Xian did not back down just because of that. Instead, while continuing to exert force on his right hand, he raised his left hand and gathered the power of the stars on his fingertip before shooting a blinding ray of light forward. The Grand Constellation Finger. A palm art in one hand, a finger art in the other. The crowd was stunned by what they were seeing. Even Zhang Jiuxiao was shocked speechless by the sight, not daring to believe his eyes. A palm art and a finger art were two entirely different battle techniques, and the Jinqi circulation pathways required for executing the techniques were completely different from one another as well. It was possible to execute the palm art first before executing the finger art, or vice versa, but, to execute them simultaneously on a hand each, that was a nigh impossible feat. Putting aside them, not even Pavilion Master Go would have been able to accomplish such a feat. Woo! The Grand Constellation Finger swiftly tore a small hole in Pavilion Master Go's myriad waves layered clouds, causing the might of the latter's battle technique to disperse swiftly like flowing water, thus undoing the defense that the other party had built up. Kacha! The heavenly demon Great Sorrow Palm swiftly tore through Pavilion Master Go's weakened defense with overwhelming might, forcing the latter to retreat in a fluster. Incredible! Not expecting that he would still be outdone despite having exerted his full strength, Pavilion Master Go assessed the young man before him grimly. Swapping his palm with a fist, he charged forward once more. Boom boom boom. Both sides moved with incredible agility. Within less than a minute, they had already exchanged more than 100 blows. Watching the battle, one of the master teachers could not help but mutter to himself in absolute shock. Pavilion Master Go was known as an unparalleled genius in his earlier days, and he has mastered countless powerful battle techniques. In that series of exchanges previously, he must have used at least 10 different battle techniques. Considering his background, it's understandable how he is able to pull that off, but, if my eyes are not playing tricks on me, Zhang Shi seems to have used more than 80 battle techniques in the same period of time. Pavilion Master Go was already nearing 900, so it was not surprising for him to have learned and mastered many battle techniques. But Zhang Xian was only 20 years old. To execute so many formidable battle techniques with ease, it was apparent that he had a deep understanding of every single one of them. How could that be possible? I have been counting, and he has used a total of 87 battle techniques so far, another master teacher added. Those words swiftly caught the attention of others, and they widened their eyes in disbelief. As combat masters, they knew how difficult it was to master every single battle technique. Yet, every single battle technique that the young man had executed was at a mastery of major accomplishment at the very minimum. Inconceivable. It seems like it's about time for the title of the #1 genius of Qingyuan City to change hands. The crowd could not help but agree with that statement. In the past, they had viewed Zhang Jiuxiao as a hurdle that they would never be able to overcome, but after seeing the young man before them, they realized that a true prodigy was actually in existence who was far beyond the comprehension of mortals like them. Contrary to everyone's shock, Wu Shi frowned in incomprehension at the sight before him instead. Something is wrong. Another master teacher stepped forward to ask, Wu Shi, what's wrong? Wu Shi contemplated for a moment, trying to put his finger on the feeling of incongruence that he felt. Principal Zhang specializes in identifying the flaws of others and capitalizing on them to subdue his opponents, but he has not done so in this battle. Instead, he began displaying an array of battle techniques. It almost as if he's intentionally prolonging the battle to temper himself. While the other master teachers might not have been familiar with Zhang Xian's abilities, he could not have been any clearer about them, especially after what they had gone through together in the Qiu Palace. The fellow had a remarkable eye that allowed him to accurately discern the flaws within the battle techniques or cultivation techniques of any cultivator, and he had always relied on this ability to catch his opponent off guard and subdue them in a single move. But despite utilizing so many powerful battle techniques, that fellow did not center his attacks on Pavilion Master Go's flaws. From this, it could be deduced that he was not intending to defeat the latter immediately. If so, there could only be one possibility: he was trying to temper his strength through battle. Tempering himself? The master teacher could not believe what he was hearing. If it was on any other occasion that someone had told him that a spiritual perception realm cultivator was battling a leaving aperture realm expert but was thinking of ways to temper himself through the battle instead of achieving victory, he would have surely thought that the other party was fool or a lunatic. However, with what was happening right before his eyes, no matter how inconceivable the matter was, he knew that it was the undeniable truth. To actually be thinking of tempering himself while fighting against an expert 3 cultivation realms stronger than he was, just how confident was the other party in his fighting prowess? Boom boom boom. After trading 3 more blows, Pavilion Master Go was suddenly forced back, giving Zhang Xian a moment to catch his breath. Just as Wu Shi had guessed, he was intending to use Pavilion Master Go to temper his mastery of the battle techniques. It was not easy for him to find a worthy opponent who could take him at his full might. Furthermore, he had just learned many new battle techniques from the Combat Master Hall, so he wanted to test them out and heighten his mastery in them as well. As expected of a leaving aperture realm expert, I'm indeed no match for him at the moment. Zhang Xian shook his head and sighed. Even though his fighting prowess had risen after grasping the heavenly art of Dimension Unravel, it would still be too difficult for him to match a leaving aperture realm expert until he achieved a breakthrough to the embryonic soul realm. Otherwise, just by the overwhelming gap in their fundamental capabilities and strength, it was nigh impossible for him to emerge victorious. Nevertheless, while it would be difficult for him to achieve victory in a proper duel, there were actually many other ways he could subdue the other party. Raising his palm and crushing it downward to halt the other party's advancement, Zhang Xian snapped his fingers. So. More than 100 flags suddenly materialized from Zhang Xian's storage ring, and they swiftly took their positions around Pavilion Master Go. As soon as that was done, Zhang Xian stomped on the ground lightly, and the formation instantaneously came to life. He had achieved a proficiency comparable to 7-star formation masters in the field of formations back at the Qiu Palace. Although it would be difficult to him to fight against Pavilion Master Go with just his own strength, with the help of a formation, his chances of victory would be enhanced significantly. Hula! A mist swiftly shrouded the entire area, concealing Pavilion Master Go within as well. Zhang Xian had set up 2 7-star intermediate stage formations, and while they were not too powerful, it would still take Pavilion Master Go more than 10 breaths to undo them. That period of time was more than enough for Zhang Xian to subdue Pavilion Master Go. As the formation whirred into operation, the crowd found their vision completely blocked by the mist. Kacha! After 15 minutes, the formation finally dissipated, and with a wave of his hand, Zhang Xian returned all of the formation flags to his storage ring. Seeing that the battle had ended so quickly, the crowd quickly turned their gazes toward Pavilion Master Go, only to freeze the next moment. The dashing Pavilion Master Go from a moment ago had his head planted in the ground. His entire body was covered with blood and wounds, such that there was not a single spot of unblemished skin on his body. It was apparent that he had come under a frenzied torrent of attacks within the short period of time, and it was doubtful whether even his closest kin would be able to recognize him given the current state he was in. Voila! Pavilion Master Go plucked his head out from the earth. He did not seem to feel disappointed or humiliated by his loss. On the contrary, his eyes were filled with excitement and anticipation as he asked, Zhang Shi, may I ask if the technique you displayed earlier is ancient sage Qiu Wu's heavenly demon Great Sorrow Palm? That's right. Zhang Xian nodded, admitting to the matter. May I know, if it's possible for you? Pavilion Master Go hesitated. Gritting his teeth in determination, he continued. To impart the battle technique to me? Why? You are interested in learning the technique? That's right. Then I won't teach you. Chapter 1184, Pavilion Master Go admits defeat. While a teacher should enlighten others without discrimination, Pavilion Master Go had truly crossed Zhang Xian's bottom line. For his own selfishness, he had chosen to disregard the truth and selfishly sided with Vice Pavilion Master Tian. The stronger a person like that was, the greater a threat to humanity they were. Thus, how could he possibly impart ancient sage Qiu Wu's heavenly demon Great Sorrow art to the other party? Zhang Xian was a kind and generous person, but that did not mean that he was undiscerning and naive. He had a clear gauge of who he should accept as his student and who he should never accept as his student. Pardon me, I was getting ahead of myself. Pavilion Master Go's face sank in disappointment. It was just a moment ago that he had forced the other party into crashing their master-teacher pavilion, so why would the other party be willing to impart his battle technique to him now? He should be glad that the other party had not killed him on the spot. I have lost. Pavilion Master Go closed his eyes momentarily and shook his head. A moment later, he opened his eyes and announced, Zhang Shi has successfully cleared the first phase of the pavilion crashing. The first phase was to defeat all of the master teachers of the master teacher pavilion, and given that Zhang Xian had managed to get all 10,000 master teachers to submit to him and defeat the strongest Pavilion Master Go, he had already cleared it. Hold it for a moment. I haven't fought with Vice Pavilion Master Tian yet, and I don't think it's right that we skip straight past him. Zhang Xian interjected. Even I am not a match for you, let alone Tian Qing. Thus, there's no longer any meaning in you fighting him, Pavilion Master Go said. However, Zhang Xian did not seem to be convinced by that explanation. He was just about to argue when Tian Qing clasped his fist and said, I am not an opponent for you either. I admit my defeat. A hint of disappointment surfaced in Zhang Xian's eyes. To be honest, he was still seething with rage with Vice Pavilion Master Tian. If only the other party had agreed to have a duel with him, he would surely have pummeled the other party deep into the ground, never to see the light of the day again. But since Vice Pavilion Master Tian had admitted his defeat, there was no excuse he could use anymore. After all, the act of pavilion crashing was bound by rules, and the entire process was supervised by the headquarters. It would not be good for him to intentionally kill another master teacher here. The master teacher tower is over there. Follow me. The master teacher tower housed the wills of the strongest master teacher of each generation. Some of them had reached the level of 8-star low tier, and there were those who had achieved accomplishments even higher than that. Naturally, it would not be an easy feat to overcome them. As such, the first phase of pavilion crashing was actually considered a mere warm-up. The true test lay ahead. This was the challenge that had halted the footsteps of countless geniuses in history. Following behind Pavilion Master Go, it did not take long for Zhang Xian to see a 7-story tower looming over him. Knowing that a great trial lay ahead, Zhang Xian took a deep breath and gathered his concentration before making his way in. As soon as Zhang Xian's silhouette disappeared amid the darkness of the tower, a master teacher could not help but ask apprehensively, will Zhang Shi succeed? It'll be very difficult. While Arching Yuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion isn't ranked at the forefront of the 8 conferred empires, it has still produced 4 8-star master teachers in history. Of them, he sure even managed to reach 8-star high tier in his lifetime. With the extensive knowledge he possesses and the incredible power he wields, the will he has left behind in the Master Teacher Tower won't be that easy to overcome, another master teacher within the crowd replied. The first master teacher nodded in agreement. Indeed. 8-star master teachers are existences that are considered near the peak of the master teacher continent. Be it their knowledge, state of mind, or comprehension of cultivation, it would be difficult for ordinary master teachers to match them. Geez, I hope that Zhang Shi will be able to clear the examination. If he succeeds, as his students, we will be able to share his glory as well. I am also fervently praying for his success. It has been a long time since anyone has crashed a pavilion. If he succeeds, think about the fame that it will bring us. In the future, I'll be able to brag to my friends that my teacher is a successful pavilion crasher. The 2 master teachers spoke with looks of anticipation on their faces. Pooh! Hearing the words of the duo, the severely wounded pavilion master Go suddenly felt his injuries acting up once more, and fresh blood spurted wildly from his mouth. It took quite a while before he managed to calm himself down once more. Master teachers of other master teacher pavilions would lay down their lives to guard the honor and pride of their pavilion, so why were his master teachers wishing for Zhang Xian's victory instead? Do you even realize that this is your master teacher pavilion too? Once he succeeds in crashing the pavilion, you will be humiliated, too. Glory your head. Noticing the look on Pavilion Master Go's face, Wu Shi could immediately tell what the other party was thinking about, and he shook his head. Those who conduct themselves morally will find help coming their way, while those who lack principles will find themselves isolated from the others. Pavilion Master Go, regardless of whether Principal Zhang is able to clear the Master Teacher Tower or not, you have already lost the hearts of your men. Even if the headquarters do not pursue this matter, it is likely that no master teacher within the Master Teacher Pavilion will willingly follow your orders anymore. While Vice Pavilion Master Tian's act of framing Zhang Xian had been carried out discreetly, considering how the matter had blown up to such a degree, there was no way the truth could be hidden any further. A person who stood bravely against an entire master teacher pavilion in order to redress his grievances, as compared to a pavilion master who chose to overlook the evil of others just to save his own skin and retire peacefully, it was apparent with a single look whom the crowd would choose to side with. Due to this matter, Pavilion Master Go would be despised by all master teachers in the world, never to make a comeback. Realizing the same, Pavilion Master Go's face turned ashen in despair. In truth, he had also realized that his days of glory were over from the moment the other party declared that he would crash the Master Teacher Pavilion. But, he had not expected that those master teachers whom he had fought alongside with previously would abandon him so utterly either. His eyes colored with desolation, Pavilion Master Go gazed into the sky with a complicated look. Have I really done wrong? The initial hopes and dreams in bettering the world when he first became the regional pavilion master had eroded over the long 500 years. Unknowingly, his priority had shifted into desperately protecting the authority and prestige that he held instead. Perhaps karma had truly come around to bite him. With a suffocating sensation within his chest, he turned to Wu Shi and asked, "What is the background of Zhang Shi?" "He's the most diligent and talented individual I have ever seen in the world," Wu Shi replied with a brilliant gleam in his eyes. A person who insisted on reading and bettering himself no matter what kind of circumstances he was in. Just Zhang Xian's attitude towards studying was one that he should really strive to learn from. Perhaps it was due to how studious Zhang Xian was that he was able to achieve what he had at such a young age, possessing strength far beyond his. Zhang Xian slowly advanced after entering the huge doors of the Master Teacher Tower. Having challenged the Master Teacher Tower once back at Xianyuan Kingdom, he knew the rules concerning it. The wills of the outstanding predecessors of the Master-Teacher Pavilion were deposited here, and every single one of them wielded superior strength. It was nigh impossible to defeat them in a normal duel, and due to that, the test would tend to concern the fundamental abilities of master-teachers instead, such as lecturing, discerning flaws, offering pointers on battle techniques, and so on. As such, what was tested in this second phase was not one's strength but how accomplished a master-teacher one was. Who? After proceeding for some time, an illusory figure suddenly appeared before Zhang Xian. He was the guardian of the very first test, an 8-star low-tier master-teacher who had risen from the Qingyuan Empire Master-Teacher Pavilion 13,000 years ago, Zhao Zhen. Seeing that the person who was crashing the pavilion was only a 20-year-old, Master-Teacher Zhao Zhen frowned. To crash a Master-Teacher Pavilion at such a young age, what kind of grievances have you suffered? The incumbent pavilion master has sided with evildoers to sully my reputation just to preserve a clean record and protect his own position. Zhang Xian clasped his fist and began explaining the matter. There's actually such a matter. The Qingyuan Empire Master-Teacher Pavilion really is getting worse generation after generation. It is high time to do some internal reorganization. Zhao Zhen harumphed furiously before turning his sights back to Zhang Xian once more. I know that you have suffered greatly from this matter, but as one of the guardians of the Qingyuan Empire Master-Teacher Pavilion, I cannot let you pass me so easily. Otherwise, if everyone attempted to crash the Master-Teacher Pavilion whenever something happened, the authority of the Master-Teacher Pavilion will be undermined. I hope that you can understand that. I understand. Zhang Xian nodded. Seeing how earnest the young man was, Zhao Zhen nodded in approval. My test will be on discerning flaws in my battle technique. I will execute a battle technique, and as long as you can find a single flaw in it, you will have cleared my test. Hearing those words, Zhang Xian's face brightened up. All right. On the other hand, seeing that the young man had loosened up instead after hearing the content of his test, as if it was already a done deal, Zhao Zhen frowned. Don't think that it will be easy to find a flaw in my battle technique. I won't be going easy on you just because of your plight. I will be using my most prided battle technique, one that I have refined again and again in my lifetime in order to perfect it. While I cannot say that it's flawless, most 7-star pinnacle master teachers would need numerous months before they could find a single flaw. I understand. Pardon me, but I am in a hurry, so can we get it over and done with quickly? Zhang Xian asked. You. Displeased, Master Teacher Zhao Zhen flung his sleeves furiously. As an 8-star low-tier Master Teacher, a test from him could not possibly be as easy as it sounded. Yet, that young man was taking him lightly, even saying that he wanted to get it over and done with as if everything was already in his grasp. Was he really that confident in clearing his test, or was he just another conceited fool? The battle technique that I will be using is known as the Autumn Breeze Intertwining Silk Hands. It's a technique that I came up with while observing the falling leaves being raked up by the autumn wind, only to be entangled in a spider's web. I'll first execute it once for you. Master Teacher Zhao Zhen raised his hands and drew out fine jinqi threads from the tips of his fingers. With elegant movements, he skillfully weaved it into a spider's web that entrapped everything within it. If someone was within the spider's web's area, they would surely find themselves getting helplessly entangled if they tried to escape from the area. I have never executed this battle technique before anyone, so you need not try to find any shortcuts around this test. Also, do not even think that you will be able to pull the wool over my eyes, it won't work. My technique consists of 10 moves, and each of them is stronger than the last. The one that I have just executed is only the first move, entwining threads of golden silk. After I am done executing all 10 moves, I will give you 4 hours to contemplate over the matter. If you are able to find a single flaw in my technique, you pass. Otherwise, I will have to regretfully inform you that your pavilion crashing has come to an end, Master Teacher Zhao Zhen said as he executed the technique. Typically speaking, he would grant those crashing the pavilion 2 days to analyze the intricacies in his battle techniques. However, The young man before him had spoken arrogantly, so he had chosen to narrow the time frame to 4 hours instead so as to hammer down the other party's arrogance. When the other party finally came to realize his own arrogance upon failing to come up with anything after 4 hours, he would loosen the time restriction. Zhang Xian shook his head and said, "There's no need to execute all 10 moves or wait 4 hours, I can list your flaws now." It was only in the spur of the moment from Pavilion Master Go's humiliation that he had chosen to engage in pavilion crashing. His priority was still to be promoted to 7-star master teacher and find ways to earn more concentrated high-tier spirit stones to raise his cultivation. He did not have any time to waste here. "You will list my flaws now?" Zhao Zhen was taken aback. He had only used a single move, but the young man was ready to list his flaws. What utter nonsense! Your autumn breeze intertwining silk hands does not look bad on the surface, wielding strength that would easily put it in the forefront of Saint intermediate tier battle techniques. Upon mastering the technique, the Jinqi threads can be skillfully utilized in many ways to restrict an opponent's movements, making it an extremely difficult technique to deal with. However, it's unfortunate that it is riddled with quite a number of flaws. I did a rough count earlier, and it seems like there is a total of 37 flaws. Zhang Xian said. 37 flaws? Zhao Zhen's face darkened in rage. I have only used the first move of my battle technique, and it's already questionable in itself whether you are able to find a single flaw from it or not. Yet, you are telling me that you have already found 37? In an instant, the last traces of goodwill that Zhao Zhen felt toward the young man before him vanished. Indeed. Oblivious to Zhao Zhen's thoughts regarding him, Zhang Xian thought that the other party was just skeptical about there being so many flaws in his technique, so he swiftly explained, the creation of a battle technique must involve trial through practical battles as well to test its effectiveness and might. Considering that you have never imparted the battle technique to anyone else or tested it out in battle, I must say that it's already impressive that there are only 37 flaws in your battle technique. You. Hearing those words, Zhao Zhen nearly exploded on the spot. With a livid face, he uttered coldly, "Since that's the case, why don't you tell me where the 37 flaws are? If you can't, don't blame me for getting nasty with you." Chapter 1185, Pavilion Crashing, Success. Are you feeling indignant because I said that there are 37 flaws in your battle technique? Fine, I'll list them for you. Seeing how the other party was refusing to learn humbly despite erring so much, Zhang Xian frowned in displeasure. In the tone of an elder educating his juniors, he said, "First and foremost, I'll start with the greatest flaw of your autumn breeze intertwining silk hands. You mentioned that you created it while observing the leaves being raked up by the autumn breeze, but I cannot see the desolation of autumn from your battle technique at all. All I can see is the intertwining nature of the Jinqi threads, there is completely no conception in it at all. Intent without strength is a pipe dream, and strength without intent is simply wasted energy. If it was just a spirit tier battle technique, it would not pose much of a problem at all. However, for a Saint Realm expert to utilize a battle technique devoid of conception, there's no doubt that it'll place him at a severe disadvantage against his peers. This. Zhao Zhen was stunned. It was not impossible to create a Saint-tier battle technique devoid of conception, but conception could augment the might of a battle technique significantly and make it easier to grasp the technique. In a sense, it could indeed be considered a flaw. Back then, when he created the technique, he had just successfully cleared his 8-star master teacher examination. With his heart filled with delight from his success, he was not in the correct state of mind to comprehend the desolation of autumn. As a result, while he did succeed in creating a powerful Saint intermediate tier battle technique, he failed to infuse the correct conception into it. As for the second flaw, as useful as your entwining threads of golden silk is in limiting the movements of an opponent, it's only effective against ordinary cultivators. True experts will be able to swiftly notice the openings in the technique. Look, if I just concentrate my Jinqi at this point. As he spoke, Zhang Xian raised his hand and drew fine Jinqi threads from his fingers. In a moment, he had already weaved the web that Zhao Zhen had created earlier. You. Zhao Zhen widened his eyes in shock. He had never executed this technique in public before, so there was no way the young man could have learned it from anywhere else. Since that was the case, didn't it mean that the young man had learned the technique from him just by observing it once? But how could that be? Not even the most formidable of prodigies that he knew of could grasp a battle technique that swiftly. A moment later, Zhao Zhen suddenly noticed a slight discrepancy in Zhang Xian's actions, and he exclaimed in delight, "Wait a moment, your entwining threads of golden silk is slightly different from mine." He was the man who had single-handedly created the autumn breeze intertwining silk hands. As similar as the young man's entwining threads of golden silk was to his, the subtle differences in their movements were still unable to escape his eyes. "Oh. The original version is too trashy, so I quickly altered it a little." Zhang Xian waved his hand as he replied leisurely. "Don't interrupt me, let me finish my words first." "Too trashy. Quickly altered it a little." Zhao Zhen's body trembled in shock upon hearing those words. He turned his sight toward the altered version that the young man was executing to examine it closely, and it seemed like the other party's version was much stronger than his. Hula! While he was still caught up in the shock from seeing the battle technique that he had perfected with much difficulty being improved by another so easily, he saw the young man raising his other palm and striking a certain point within the web. Voila! In an instant, as if having its crux destroyed, the Jinqi web swiftly shriveled, and the surge of Jinqi abruptly reversed as if an alarmed beast. The crux of your entwining threads of golden silk lies in the constriction of the Jinqi threads upon contact with the opponent so as to trap the latter. I'm not saying that it doesn't work, but its flaw is apparent as well. Once this Mingmen is noticed by the opponent, the latter just has to tap on it lightly in order to cause the flow of Jinqi to reverse, resulting in a backlash. Those words left Zhao Zhen's eyes narrowing in shock. He was indeed aware of this flaw in his autumn breeze intertwining silk hands, but one had to be at least an 8-star high-tier master teacher before they were able to notice it, and against such experts, victory was already impossible in the first place. Thus, he had not really paid much attention to it. Moving on, for your second move, threading the heavens, a silver thread infused with one's will is skillfully maneuvered to control the environment, allowing one to corner the opponent. However, the problem is that the silver thread can be easily severed. Once the opponent notices the presence of the silver thread and severs it, it will inflict significant damage to one's soul. Zhang Xian continued. Hold it for a moment. Zhao Zhen's eyes widened upon hearing those words. I haven't executed my second technique yet, right? So, how could you know its name and its flaws? I told you not to interrupt me. Given how simple your battle technique is, anyone would easily have deduced the rest as long as they are no fool. Zhang Xian waved his hand impatiently. As for your third move, Cry of the Autumn Cicada, I understand that you wanted to incorporate a sonic attack into the autumn breeze intertwining silk hands in order to grant it more variability and transformations, but this happens to be the most flawed move in your battle technique as well. Out of the 37 flaws, it takes up a whole 8 of them, and they are namely. Zhang Xian proceeded to explain every single flaw in elaborate detail, clearly pointing out the fundamental principle behind each move and how it could be easily deciphered. Just by hearing this much, Zhao Zhen could tell that there were no longer any secrets in his battle technique. At this point, it was as if the other party was the creator of the autumn breeze intertwining silk hands and not him. His lips twitched as he felt his body growing more and more illusory, threatening to dissipate at any moment. Had it not been for his superior mental fortitude as an 8-star master teacher, he might have gone mad there and then. To be able to deduce the other 9 moves just by seeing the first one, even accurately naming them, why did it feel as if he was dreaming? At this point, the young man's lecturing voice suddenly sounded once more, jolting him out of his dazed state. All right, these are the flaws that I have noticed so far. Have you understood them? Do you know where you have erred now? Yes, I know my errors now. I won't do it in the future. Zhao Zhen replied instinctively, but halfway through his words, he suddenly paused before redness spread across his face. The other party had placed himself in the role of a teacher, and somehow, he had been dragged along with the flow and subconsciously placed himself in the role of a student. He was an old ancestor from 13,000 years ago, an elder countless generations more senior than the young man before him. For this to happen. Cough cough. Unable to take it any longer, Zhao Zhen quickly waved his hand and ushered Zhang Xian to move on. All right. You have already cleared the test, so you should proceed to the next floor. Cleared the test? Is that the problem now? It seems like you still have not realized what the problem is. As a master teacher who has ventured beyond the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, do you know how many people look up to you as their role model? And yet, is this the attitude you have toward learning? Zhang Xian berated furiously. You are really the worst student I have seen in my years of teaching. You should learn some humility. Zhao Zhen was crazed. I am the invigilator over here. How in the world did I turn into your student? Pop. Frenzied, Zhao Zhen finally reached the limits of his tolerance, and his will wavered before vanishing from the spot. Seeing the other party's will vanishing out of embarrassment, a glint flashed across Zhang Xian's eyes. You knew why I am crashing this Master Teacher Pavilion, and yet, you still chose to hold me back. If I didn't choke you with my words, who else should I choke? Since I am here to crash the pavilion, I might as well go all the way with it. Outside the Master Teacher Pavilion. Seeing the light on the Master Teacher Tower, Wu Shi remarked, the second floor has lit up. It seems like Principal Zhang has encountered Elder Zhao. Elder Zhao has a deep comprehension of battle techniques, achieving a level unmatched by any other in our Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion. Even if Principal Zhang is able to clear his test, it'll probably take quite a while. Wu Shi had lived in the Qingyuan Empire all his life, so he was familiar with the various tests in the Master Teacher Tower as well. Who? Just as Wu Shi was analyzing the situation, the light on the second floor abruptly extinguished. The moment a challenger stepped into one of the tests, the corresponding floor would light up. When the test was cleared, the light would automatically be extinguished. He cleared the test. Wu Shi was taken aback. He had thought that Zhang Xian would take some time before he was able to clear Elder Zhao's test, but who could have known that he would actually be so fast? To clear a test within just 3 minutes. When did 8-star master teachers become so easy to deal with? The second floor has lit up again, someone within the crowd exclaimed in shock. Raising his gaze to take another look at the Master Teacher Tower, Wu Shi was stunned. The light of the second floor, which had just been extinguished a moment ago, suddenly lit up again. For the light to suddenly return, did it mean that Zhang Xian did not actually clear the test? But if that was the case, why would it be extinguished in the first place? Just as everyone was bewildered by the bizarre happenings, Pavilion Master Go suddenly spoke. Wait a moment, the color is different. That color should belong to Elder Han of the third floor. Taking a closer look, Wu Shi realized that there was indeed something amiss. The color that had lit up previously was yellowish-orange, whereas the one that had just lit up was milky white. That should have been the color to represent Elder Han's test. Elder Han is a master teacher who left the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion 8,000 years ago, and even though he's an 8-star low-tier master teacher as well, he possesses capabilities surpassing those of Elder Zhao. That is why he has been tasked with the responsibility of guarding the third floor. So, why would he suddenly appear on the second floor? Pavilion Master Go's voice was tinged with confusion. Wu Shi and the rest of the gathered crowd frowned in bewilderment as well. Under normal circumstances, the light will only be extinguished and the test has been cleared, and the challenger will move on to the next floor. The location of the tests shouldn't change. Pavilion Master Go analyzed. However, halfway through his words, his body suddenly stiffened as his mouth opened wide, and his eyes bulged in disbelief. Or does this mean that the will of Elder Zhao has dissipated? Dissipated? That's right. According to what I know, if the will of the predecessor guarding a certain floor of the master teacher dissipates, the other predecessors guarding the floors above will automatically slide down to take his place, Pavilion Master Go said hoarsely. But it should just be a simple test, so why would Elder Zhao's will dissipate? Considering that there was no fight involved in the tests of the master teacher tower, there should have been no way that the wills of the predecessors would dissipate all of a sudden. What could possibly be happening within? Just as the crowd was bewildered by the absurd situation, the milky white glow suddenly flickered before vanishing altogether. After which, a light blue glow lit up on the second floor. Elder Han's will has dissipated as well. Pavilion Master Go was dumbstruck. In the next moment, everything suddenly struck him simultaneously like a bomb exploding in his mind, and he abruptly leaped up in a panic. This is a disaster. Quick! We need to stop Zhang Shi from carrying on. Our Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion only has this many experts in its history. If all of their wills dissipate, our Master Teacher Pavilion will really be a goner. On top of serving as the final line of defense against pavilion crashing, the wills of the predecessors also serve to clarify the doubts of the Master Teachers. With the extensive knowledge they possessed, they could be considered the greatest asset of their Master Teacher Pavilion. If they disappeared as well, the days of the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion would truly be over. It's impossible to stop him at this point. The headquarters have given Principal Zhang the permission to crash the pavilion, and we would be flouting the rules if we intervened. Wu Shi panicked upon realizing the severe implications of the situation as well, but due to the rules set in place, there was nothing they could do. Can't we just admit our defeat? Pavilion Master Go was so flustered that it seemed as if he would burst into tears at any moment. That might work. Wu Shi pondered for a moment before swiftly nodding. As long as our Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion officially acknowledges that he has successfully crashed the pavilion, there will be no need for him to challenge the Master Teacher Tower anymore. If so, we will be allowed to head in and stop him. Hearing those words, Pavilion Master Go whipped out his Pavilion Master token, bit his finger, and dripped a droplet of blood on it. Wang! A brilliant burst of light rose into the sky. Hong Long! An overwhelming aura descended from the sky, placing immense pressure on those standing beneath. Following which, a grand voice echoed in the air. The Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion officially surrenders to Master Teacher Zhang Xian, and I seek permission to end the pavilion crashing. Ah, there's no need for it anymore. He has already finished his pavilion crashing. At that moment, Jia, the doors to the Master Teacher Tower suddenly opened. Zhang Xian emerged with a look of bewilderment on his face. What is wrong with your Master Teacher Tower? Why are all of the predecessors cramping up the second floor? Chapter 1186, 7-Star Master Teacher. Hearing Zhang Xian's question, Pavilion Master Go spurted a mouthful of blood. He felt so stifled that he could have gone insane on the spot. With this, his dream of retiring peacefully had been utterly shattered. He was probably the very first pavilion master in history to have the wills of all the predecessors dissipate under his leadership. After a long moment of silence, Pavilion Master Go finally suppressed the indignation in his heart and bowed deeply. Zhang Shi, since you have successfully crashed the pavilion, you can raise any request. As long as it isn't at odds with our fundamental values as master teachers, our Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Empire will surely heed your orders. To be honest, Pavilion Master Go really felt that he was unlucky. There had only been 3 successful pavilion crashes in the long history of the Master Teacher Pavilion, and never had he dreamed that he would be the 4th. Vice Pavilion Master Tian has colluded with King Zhongqing to frame me, and on top of that, he has intentionally leaked the secrets of the Master Teacher Pavilion to the otherworldly demonic tribe, causing the death of countless Master Teachers. His sins are unpardonable, so I want the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion to apprehend him and have this matter thoroughly investigated this instant. Zhang Xian ordered authoritatively. Yes. Pavilion Master Go nodded. Turning around, he was just about to speak when he noticed something and frowned. "Where is Vice Pavilion Master Tian?" Vice Pavilion Master Tian had been standing next to him just a moment ago, so how did the latter vanish all of a sudden? A master teacher quickly rushed forward. Reporting to Pavilion Master Go, Vice Pavilion Master Tian has left temporarily to deal with some urgent matters. Shit! Pavilion Master Go's eyes narrowed in dread. Comb through Qingyuan City and find him right now. Voila! The 10,000 master teachers swiftly dispersed throughout Qingyuan City. Not too long later, they returned with livid expressions on their faces. Pavilion Master Go, it appears that Vice Pavilion Master Tian is no longer in the capital. We aren't able to find any trace of him. Hearing those words, Pavilion Master Go's face turned completely pale. He had been so shocked by Zhang Xian's pavilion crashing that he had not paid much notice to the fellow beside him. He had not expected the latter to escape while his attention was elsewhere. It seemed like the Vice Pavilion Master Tian knew that Zhang Xian would have him apprehended as soon as the latter succeeded in crashing the pavilion, so he dared not stay any longer. The very purpose of my pavilion crashing was out of indignation of being framed by Vice Pavilion Master Tian. You should know that very well. You should have known that he would escape as soon as I succeed in my pavilion crashing, and yet, you did not make any preparations in advance. Tell me, how in the world did a fool like you manage to become the pavilion master? Zhang Xian's face turned incomparably ugly as well. The conflict between him and the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion originated from Vice Pavilion Master Tian. Regardless of whether Zhang Xian succeeded in the pavilion crashing or not, it was almost certain that the headquarters would investigate this matter, and the latter would be punished for his actions. Despite this, Pavilion Master Go did not dispatch any men to keep a close eye on Vice Pavilion Master Tian, even allowing the latter to come and go as he pleased. As such, Vice Pavilion Tian would have to have been an imbecile to not make use of the opportunity to escape. If a 7-star master teacher were to determinately conceal all traces of himself and go into hiding, it would be nigh impossible to find him. Pavilion Master Go's face turned completely red. He had intended to make such an order, but he had not expected Zhang Xian to successfully crash the pavilion, and to succeed so swiftly at that. Clenching his fists tightly, Pavilion Master Go turned to the crowd and declared imposingly, "In my name as the head of the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, I hereby issue an arrest warrant for Tian Qing. Alive or dead, capture him and bring him to me." Yes. The master teachers swiftly scattered. An arrest warrant from the Master Teacher Pavilion could be said to be the most powerful warrant throughout the entire Master Teacher continent. Once released, all the empires and kingdoms within the Qingyuan conferred empire would receive the message, and any cultivator who encountered the wanted individual would be handsomely rewarded for notifying the regional Master Teacher Pavilion. It could be said that with this arrest warrant, unless the wanted were to forever conceal their strength and lie low, it would only be a matter of time before they were found. After making arrangements for Vice Pavilion Master Tian's capture, Pavilion Master Go took out his emblem and declared, "I, Go Tianza, have let down the Master Teacher Pavilion. Thus, I shall officially resign from my position in the Master Teacher Pavilion and await the headquarters' verdict. Until a new pavilion master is nominated, the affairs of the Master Teacher Pavilion will be handled by Wu Shi." Along with that declaration, the energy he had a moment ago seemed to suddenly vanish without a trace. In an instant, he looked as if he had aged several centuries. He had been the head of the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion for 500 years, and he had not erred within that period. He really did not expect that he would end up retiring in such a manner. On the other hand, knowing that there was no point in saying anything further, Zhang Xian shook his head and sighed. Even with all the measures taken to arrest Vice Pavilion Master Tian, it would not be easy to find him once more. Thus, choosing to put the matter aside for the moment, he turned to Wu Shi and said, "Wu Shi, here are my 7-star supporting occupation emblems. I meet the prerequisites, so I would like to apply for my promotion to 7-star Master Teacher." After saying those words, he passed the 7-star supporting occupation emblems over. After taking a look, Wu Shi nodded and said, Principal Zhang, give me a moment. I'll report your situation to the headquarters, so it might take a while. There's no need to hurry. Meanwhile, is it fine if I take a look around the Master Teacher Pavilion's library? Zhang Xian replied. Even though he had cleared the Empire Building examination, there were still some necessary administrative procedures that had to be completed before he could be awarded with the 7-star emblem. With Wu Shi dealing with those for him, they would not pose much of a problem. Rather than waiting there for the processing to be done, his time would be better spent browsing through books. While he was already qualified to become a 7-star master teacher, he had not browsed through the 7-star master teacher books yet. This would be a good opportunity to do so. Here is my identity token. With this, you should be able to freely access any book within the Master Teacher Pavilion, Wu Shi replied. Considering how Zhang Xian had managed to crash the entire Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, defeating all the master teachers within it, there was no doubt that he was already on par with a 7-star master teacher. Thus, it could not be considered a breach of rules to allow the other party to access the 7-star books using his token while the other party's promotion application was being processed. After accepting the token, Zhang Xian had a master teacher swiftly lead him to the library. The Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion's library did not just contain books concerning the master teacher occupation, there was also a sizable collection on each of the other occupations as well, such as painter, appraiser, and the like. Master teachers prided themselves on being knowledgeable, so it was only natural that they would house a huge array of books in their library. It took almost an entire day before Zhang Xian managed to collect all the books into the Library of Heaven's Path. He started by browsing through the master teacher books before moving on to the Spirit Awakener, Demonic Tunist, Apothecary, Physician, Painter, Beast Tamer, Terpsichore, Formation Master, Appraiser, Celestial Designer, and the others. Naturally, the collection of books on the other occupations within the library of the Master Teacher Pavilion could not be compared to the collections in the libraries of the occupations guilds, but to Zhang Xian, it did not matter how profound or deep each book was. As long as the quantity was enough, the quality did not matter at all. It was not until 3 days later that Zhang Xian successfully assimilated the knowledge of these books with their corresponding 7-star Heaven's Path manuals. As soon as Zhang Xian walked out from the library, Wu Shi stepped forward and passed an object to him. Principal Zhang, here is your 7-star Master Teacher emblem. Taking a look at it, Zhang Xian heaved a sigh of relief. After all the trouble he had gone through, he was finally a 7-star master teacher. It was only a year ago that he had been a teacher who was on the verge of being fired, and he had not even heard of the master teacher occupation at that point. Yet, in the blink of an eye, he was already a 7-star master teacher, one of the top figures of the master teacher continent. Time really flies. Principal Zhang, there's still no trace of Tianqing anywhere. However, I have already reported this matter to the headquarters, and the headquarters have decided to dispatch an envoy to track him down as well. If nothing goes wrong, the envoy should be arriving in half a month's time, Wu Shi informed Zhang Xian. I see. Zhang Xian nodded. Tianqing would have surely escaped as warily as he could so as to prevent anyone from tracking him down, so unless a unique artifact was used, it would be nigh impossible to find him. What about King Zhongqing? Have you captured him yet? He's currently imprisoned within the cell of the Master Teacher Pavilion. However, he still refuses to speak. Wu Shi shook his head. It's fine, just keep him imprisoned for the time being. How is the matter of awarding Chen Zhe with accolades coming along? Zhang Xian asked. Zhang Xian had advised Wu Shi to offer the highest compliments to Chen Zhe instead of punishing the latter so as to lure their enemies into action. But before Wu Shi could do so, Zhang Xian had ended up crashing the pavilion. 3 days had passed since then, so Wu Shi should have gotten it done by now. Just as you instructed, I conducted a ceremony to award accolades to Chen Zhe earlier this morning, complimenting him for the great contribution he has made to mankind. I also made sure to make his accomplishments as detailed as possible. Wu Shi quickly nodded. Hearing that Wu Shi had done it, Zhang Xian smiled in satisfaction. That's good. Alright, gather a few of the stronger master teachers and follow me. It's about time for us to apprehend Tianqing. Apprehend Tianqing? How? Wu Shi was stunned. Simple. We'll lie in ambush at Chenji's residence. If nothing goes wrong, the residence should find itself welcoming an uninvited guest tonight, Zhang Xian replied. Chenji's residence? Does Principal Zhang mean to say that Chenji wields some secret concerning Tianqing? Wu Shi pondered for a moment before swiftly comprehending the situation. Chenji was Tianqing's student, which made the latter suspicious too. On top of that, Chenji's abrupt death in his cell in the midst of the investigation was extremely curious as well. At this point, Wu Shi was nearly certain that the both of them had been conspiring with one another. I'm not too sure either. This is an idea that came to my mind over the past 2 days. If Chenji did not hold any critical information, there should have been no reason for the other side to go to the trouble of silencing him. While your act of awarding him accolades publicly will reek of a trap, my gut feeling tells me that the other side will not dare take the risk, Zhang Xian analyzed. I understand the rationale behind your plan, but, given that Tianqing is already in a precarious position himself, is there a need for him to stake his life just to guard a secret? Wu Shi asked with a frown. If Tianqing was indicted with the current crimes he was accused of, there was a very good chance that he would be executed by the Master Teacher Pavilion headquarters. Since he was already a goner either way, it should not matter whether the list of crimes to his name increased or not. Thus, even if Chenji possessed any secrets, it did not seem likely that Tianqing would risk exposing himself just to retrieve the secret. That depends on how important the secret is, Zhang Xian said. The reason Chenji was exposed was because he had duped Zhang Yinqiu and the others of the news concerning the ancient domain and leaked it to the otherworldly demonic tribe. So, if the secret that he holds concerns some confidential intelligence of the otherworldly demonic tribe, Tianqing might just take the risk. This. Wu Shi's body stiffened upon hearing those words. Principal Zhang, could you have discovered something regarding that? Zhang Xian shook his head. It's still speculation at the current moment. Over the past 2 days, on top of going through the books that he had collected, he had been pondering over his encounters over the past 7 days in Qingyuan City as well. After some thought, he could not help but feel that something was amiss. It was a little difficult to believe that Tianqing was unaware of his student's affiliation with the otherworldly demonic tribe. Furthermore, as the vice-head of the Master Teacher Pavilion, it was honestly suspicious how Tianqing took no action after learning from Wu Shi that his student had leaked vital intelligence to the otherworldly demonic tribe. Considering how severe the matter was, shouldn't Tianqing have been in a rush to explain himself so as to absolve himself of blame? Or perhaps, did he know that he did not have to do so? Alright, I'll gather my men right now. Wu Shi could tell that Zhang Xian seemed to have noticed something crucial, so he quickly left the room. A few moments later, he returned with 5 master teachers beside him. 4 of them were elders of the Master Teacher Pavilion, and the last one was a familiar face, Zhang Jiuxiao. As powerless as Zhang Jiuxiao appeared to be compared to Zhang Xian, defeated without even managing to land a blow on the latter, his true strength was still formidable. If he were to use all the means at his disposal, especially his 2 Saint Intermediate Tier swords and 4 Saint Low Tier sabers, there was a good chance that he would be able to overwhelm even Wu Shi. For the time being, just sit around and rest. We'll set off at night time, Zhang Xian instructed. Yes, the crowd replied. After witnessing the pavilion crashing, they were all filled with admiration for the young man before them. At this moment, Zhang Xian's prestige within the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion could be said to have exceeded even that of Wu Shi. Chapter 1187, Arrest in a compartment of a tavern by the suburbs of Qingyuan City, a few men were gathered around a table. However, their eyes kept drifting off toward a nearby residence from time to time. Wu Shi sent a telepathic message to Zhang Xian. Principal Zhang, that's where Chenji lives. As soon as night fell, they had immediately headed over here. Through the prior, discreet arrangements of the master-teacher pavilion, they did not catch anyone's attention. Zhang Xian extended his spiritual perception toward the residence to perceive its interior. While the spiritual perception of others was only able to cover a radius of 400 meters, and that was including even the half-leaving aperture realm Wushi, Zhang Xian's spiritual perception was able to cover a radius of 2,500 meters. He would be able to perceive the slightest movement within the residence from where they sat, so there was no need for them to hide within Qianzhe's residence at all. Qianzhe's residence sure is extravagant and sturdy. Zhang Xian could not help but exclaim after taking a swift look at it. As humble as Qianzhe might have seemed in the Qingyuan Empire Master-Teacher Pavilion, he was still a 7-star low-tier Master-Teacher, as well as the direct disciple of a Vice-Pavilion Master. Just by those two identities, he could definitely be considered one of the more eminent figures in Qingyuan City. As if to reflect that, his residence was filled with all kinds of formations, and nearly all of them had reached grade 7. In terms of renovation, his residence was not on par with the affluent King Zhongqing's manor yet, but it was still far beyond that of an ordinary clan. A gazebo on the 5th step, a towering building on the 10th. The corridors meandered like long ribbons, and the roofs were beautifully sculpted. It was hard to tell what Wushi did, but the residence did not seem to have been too affected by Qianzhe's death. On the contrary, it was extremely tranquil and peaceful. Principal Zhang, do we have to make any preparations in advance? Wushi pondered for a brief moment before continuing. From what I know, Tianqing seems to have a Saint Intermediate tier artifact in his possession. In terms of its individual strength, it is beyond that of the Golden Origin Cauldron, and it complements his cultivation, allowing him to display exceptional fighting prowess. It's fine. Zhang Xian shook his head. Making too many preparations in advance could play against us instead. It would be bad if the other party notices that something is amiss and flees. Naturally, it would have been much safer if they were to fill Qianzhe's residence with their own formations and men. However, the commotion in doing so might instead deter Tianqing from biting the bait. But Wushi was still a little worried. There's no need to worry. As powerful as Tianqing may be, as long as his fighting prowess is beneath that of Pavilion Master Go, we should not face too many problems dealing with him. Besides, as long as we can hold him for a moment, we can always call for reinforcements from the Combat Master Hall, Zhang Xian said. He had fought Tianqing in the past, and the latter was not a match for him at all. Even if the latter had a powerful Saint Intermediate tier artifact in his possession, Zhang Xian was still confident that they would at least be able to protect themselves. On the off chance that they found themselves outmatched, as long as they could hold on for a short moment, the Combat Master Hall would be able to dispatch their elites to reinforce them. Even if Tianqing was a true leaving aperture realm expert, he was confident that they would be able to subdue him with relative ease. Wushi pondered for a moment before nodding. That's true. Knowing that they would be facing a great battle soon, the other master teachers focused their attention on conditioning their state so that they would be able to fight at their full strength later on. A long time later, when the moon was just beginning to set in the west, Zhang Xian suddenly stood up and said, "He's here." Wushi and the others widened their eyes in alarm. They quickly activated their spiritual perception to take a look, only to find nothing at all. He's already in the residence. Noticing the looks of confusion on the faces of the master teachers, Zhang Xian quickly explained, he came from underground. Underground? Everyone looked at Zhang Xian with an incredulous look. While spiritual perception was able to pass through obstacles, it would severely limit its range. Thus, it was difficult to perceive items that were beneath the ground. And yet, Zhang Xian was still able to discern the intruder so easily. He's advancing very warily, choosing to sneak into the opposite residence before using some kind of secret art to dive underground. His movements are subtle, but there's no doubt that he's there. All right, let's go over to apprehend him, Zhang Xian said. Back in the Jingyuan City Poison Hall, he had encountered the Earthleaf King, who had the uncanny ability to dive into the ground. In view of that, Zhang Xian had chosen to extend his spiritual perception to cover the underground as well, and it was a relief that he had done so. All right. The crowd swiftly got to their feet before flying out through the windows, heading for the residence right before them. They landed at the center of the residence, where Zhang Xian carefully directed the master teachers into their positions. After that was done, he flicked his wrist and swiftly placed a few formation flags into the ground. Wang! Zhang Xian stomped on the ground and bellowed, "Come out!" Pang! The ground began shaking intensely, and before long, as figure was forcefully plucked out from the ground. The figure was dressed in black from head to toe, allowing him to blend in perfectly with the darkness of the night. However, with their exceptional eyesight as primordial spirit realm experts, the other master teachers could still easily make out his appearance to determine his identity. "Tianqing, it's indeed you." Wu Shi's face turned livid. "You won't be getting away today." Wu Shi's hand clawed forward, and a powerful might burst forth, threatening to tear Tianqing into shreds. On the other hand, Tianqing did not expect that there would be someone lying in ambush for him. His eyes narrowed in apprehension as he quickly raised his arms to defend himself from Wu Shi's offense. Wu Shi's claws gouged deep into the flesh of his hand, but thanks to his timely reaction, Tianqing managed to protect his vitals. After fending off Wu Shi's attack, Tianqing swiftly turned around and flitted away, hoping to escape from the area. Escape? Do you think that you will be able to escape? With a light chuckle, Zhang Jiuxiao raised his finger, and a powerful sword suddenly descended from the sky. It was the Saint Intermediate Tier sword that he had in his possession. After listening to Zhang Xian's lecture, while the sword still had not made a breakthrough to half-leaving Aperture Realm yet, its strength had still grown considerably. Complemented with Zhang Jiuxiao's incredible cultivation, powerful surges of sword qi burst forth from the sword, covering a distance of several dozen meters in the blink of an eye to strike Tianqing. Seeing this, Tianqing's face darkened. Without any hesitation, he flicked his wrist and drew a sword as well to deal with Zhang Jiuxiao's offense. After several clashes, Zhang Jiuxiao was forced to retreat in a fluster. As powerful as he was, Tianqing was still an entire cultivation realm stronger than him. On top of that, their weapons were both at Saint Intermediate Tier. Given so, it was inevitable that he would be in a disadvantageous position against the other party. After pushing back Zhang Jiuxiao, Tianqing leaped into the sky, but the next moment, he felt a ferocious might tearing through the space around him, heading right for him. It was the offense from the other elders of the Master Teacher Pavilion. They were all primordial spirit realm pinnacle experts as well, and knowing how powerful the person before them was, they dared not hold back. Whipping out their weapons, they used their strongest techniques without any hesitation. Innumerable bursts of sword qi appeared before Tianqing, forming a massive wall in his path. If the latter continued any further, he would surely be torn to shreds. With an awful complexion on his face, Tianqing knew that it would be dangerous if he pushed on any further. Flicking his wrist, he sent a powerful strike toward the wall of sword qi and made use of the momentum from the rebound to descend back to the ground. Barely after he managed to steady his figure once more, Wu Shi and Zhang Jiuxiao launched their second assault on him. Zhang Xian had prepared a battle plan to ensure that they would be able to successfully apprehend Tianqing. As the two most powerful experts of the group, Wu Shi and Zhang Jiuxiao would be in charge of the offense, whereas the remaining four were responsible for preventing Tianqing from escaping. Watching as Tianqing was slowly ground down under the simultaneous assault of the master teachers, Zhang Xian heaved a sigh of relief. Seeing that he did not have to join the battle, he activated his eye of insight and began assessing the surroundings instead. Since Tianqing was willing to the risk going to Chen's residence, it could only mean that there was a secret hidden there that Tianqing perceived to be even more important than his own life. Scanning the surroundings carefully, Zhang Xian suddenly frowned. He walked up to the trees in the middle of the courtyard. They were Saint-Tier lingering fragrance trees, known for the lingering fragrance fruits that they produced. Despite being considered a saint-tier medicinal herb, the lingering fragrance tree was completely ineffective in raising one's cultivation. It was only valued as a perfume. One who consumed it would retain its fragrance within their body for an entire year. To put it in other terms, it was a commodity that only ladies would want. Yet, there were actually 7 of such trees in Chenji's courtyard. Even before coming close, Zhang Xian could already smell the sweet, intoxicating fragrance that they emanated. Even he had to admit that the fragrance was indeed very pleasant. If a lady carried such a scent on her, she would surely be able to charm any men. However, what Zhang Xian was interested in was not the trees themselves but the area of Zhang Wan beneath the trees. A grade 7 aura sealing formation. Using saint-tier medicinal herbs in place of formation flags in order to conceal the presence of the formation, not bad. Zhang Xian nodded. In the eyes of an outsider, those might have seemed like perfectly normal trees. However, as a 7-star pinnacle formation master, Zhang Xian could easily tell that the positions of those trees formed a unique formation. In principle, it was similar to the aura sealing formation that he had set up previously in Hongyuan Empire to conceal the Byzantium Helios beast's presence, but through tapping into the strength of the saint-tier lingering fragrance trees, the formation was raised to the tier of grade 7 pinnacle. On top of that, it was also intentionally concealed by the other formations, so if one did not examine it closely, it would have been difficult to notice its existence. Even Zhang Xian had only managed to deduce it himself by analyzing the flow of the spiritual energy in the area. A 7-star low-tier master teacher setting up a grade 7 pinnacle aura sealing formation in his residence? Let me see what kind of secret he is hiding beneath. Zhang Xian walked forward and stomped forcefully on the ground. Voila! The ground immediately parted, revealing a stone door. Zhang Xian placed his hand on the stone door and forcefully erased the inscriptions on it before walking in. Beyond the stone door was a flight of stairs made from a mysterious material that descended into the deep darkness. For some reason, it was impossible to see too far ahead even with the radiance of the night illumination pearls, as if something was absorbing the light. Zhang Xian had to activate his eye of insight before everything became a little clearer. It's star luster stone. Zhang Xian frowned. After going through the books in the appraiser hall and the master teacher pavilion, he had gained some understanding of the rare minerals on the master teacher continent. The star luster stone was a peculiar mineral that had the ability to absorb light, making an area incredibly dark. Of course, through using a unique method, one could release the light absorbed within the stone, making it incomparably bright, as if a star in the sky. It was for this reason that the rock was named Starluster. However, the Starluster stone within the passageway seemed to have been altered in a certain manner that allowed it to only absorb light but not release it. Nevertheless, this did not pose too much trouble for Zhang Xian. Navigating his way forward with his eye of insight, he slowly made his way down. After walking for around 70 to 80 meters, he finally reached the bottom of the stairs. Raising his gaze, he could not help but be taken aback by what he saw. It was a vast underground chamber. At the very center of the chamber was a huge pool of lava that emitted frightening heat. Fortunately, it was sealed by a massive formation. A grade 8 formation. Seeing how the formation was constructed out of unique materials, its grade was surely not beneath those within the Qiu Wu Palace. Clearly, it had already reached grade 8. It was one thing for there to be a grade 7 pinnacle aura sealing formation in the courtyard of a 7-star low-tier master teacher, but to think that there would be an underground chamber with a grade 8 formation beneath his residence at that. Something was definitely amiss. Let me see what the formation is channeling power toward. Through his discerning eye, Zhang Xian could tell that the purpose of the grade 8 formation was to channel the immense energy contained within the lava to power something. Tracing the flow of power in the formation, Zhang Xian soon narrowed his eyes in astonishment. This. Chapter 1188, Tian Qing's death. Before Zhang Xian's eyes was a massive altar powered by the formation. It was floating silently in the air, and perhaps because it was not activated, it appeared to meld into the deep darkness. There was an ancient quality to the altar that felt as if it had traversed across the ages. This altar, it's very similar to the one that I obtained from the Scarlet Leaf King. Could it be an altar of the otherworldly demonic tribe? Zhang Xian's face darkened. The altar was identical to the one he had obtained from the Scarlet Leaf King previously, just significantly larger. With a single look, it was apparent that the altar belonged to the otherworldly demonic tribe as well. Studying it with his eye of insight, he saw countless inscriptions carved on the altar. These inscriptions were extremely peculiar, being neither in the language of the humans nor the language of the beasts. Nevertheless, these words were extremely familiar to Zhang Xian. With just a single glance, he had already recognized them. These words are in the language that ancient sage Qiu Wu used to leave behind his heritage. The maps that ancient sage Qiu Wu had left behind were in the same language as the words carved on the altar. When these words were structured together in a certain manner, they would be imbued with a peculiar power over space. It seems to be some kind of teleportation formation, serving to teleport otherworldly demons over here. Zhang Xian pondered with a deep frown. The presence of this very formation was the most direct evidence to show that Chen Zhe had betrayed mankind for the otherworldly demonic tribe. Considering the scale of the altar, and the sheer amount of energy it was powered with from the grade 8 formation below, it was extremely likely that it had played an integral role in the invasion of the otherworldly demonic tribe 20 years ago. Otherwise, considering that the subterranean galleries had been tightly sealed, how could so many otherworldly demons have suddenly emerged? From the looks of it, it seems like Tian Qing has betrayed mankind as well. While Chen Zhe was a 7-star low-tier master teacher in the Master Teacher Pavilion, it was impossible for him to construct such a powerful formation by himself while concealing the matter from his teacher, Tian Qing. The only possibility was that Tian Qing was in on the matter as well. In other words, Vice Pavilion Master Tian, the most authoritative 7-star pinnacle master teacher of the Master Teacher Pavilion, had been a spy of the otherworldly demonic tribe all along. Putting it together with the deductions he had made before, Zhang Xian came to a realization. And here I was wondering why, despite how honest and humble I have been, the other party still came straight for me. Everything makes sense now. It had only been a week since he had arrived at Qingyuan City, and he had not caused any trouble within this period, unlike back when he was at the Hongyuan Master Teacher Academy. And yet, someone had still found such a crude reason to attack him, claiming that his butler was the founder of the poison hall just on the basis that they shared the same name. This matter had left him rather confused for quite some time, but looking at it once more, it could have been vengeance for the Sky Leaf King and the others. After all, the 10 kings of the Qingtian lineage had ended up dying in his hands. Even if not for vengeance, it was understandable why the otherworldly demonic tribe would attempt to get rid of him. The Qingtian lineage, Tian Qing, King Zhongqing. I should have known earlier. Zhang Xian shook his head. The Qingtian lineage had nearly been wiped out by him, 9 of them were killed while the last one was tamed. He should have suspected this from the moment that he learned that King Zhongqing and Tian Qing wanted to deal with him, especially given the fact that Tian Qing was the teacher of Chen Zhe. However, due to their identities, he had only thought that they were negligent in their responsibilities back then. Tian Qing and King Zhongqing. They were probably both from the Qingtian lineage, right? Furthermore, looking back on their records, both of them seemed to have come to power after achieving significant contributions in the war against the otherworldly demonic tribe 20 years ago. Forget it. For the time being, my priority should be to destroy this altar. Once I crush it, it'll be impossible for them to send any more men over. As this matter had great implications, while Zhang Xian was confident in his deduction, he knew that he needed to obtain concrete proof before doing anything. Thus, he decided to put the matter aside for now. Flicking his wrist, he took out the Glacier Rain sword. Voila! Driving his Jinqi, he shot a barrage of sword qi toward the altar. In the 3 days he had spent in the Combat Master Hall, he had managed to bring his Heaven's Path sword art to greater heights. If he could raise his Glacier Rain sword to Saint Intermediate Tier 2, even without the use of a formation, he would be able to subdue Pavilion Master Go easily with his sword. Break. However, as Zhang Xian's sword Qi was just about to strike the altar, he suddenly felt a compelling power wrapping around him, rendering him lightheaded. Following which, an immense might suddenly tugged at his soul, attempting to forcefully drag it out of his body. This. Zhang Xian widened his eyes in astonishment. With a powerful force tugging at his soul, he could not continue his attack anymore, and his body staggered weakly on the spot. The tugging sensation on his soul was extremely familiar. He had experienced it once in the past. Tsang Su had used such a technique against him. However, due to Tsang Su's lacking strength relative to his soul, the technique was not able to faze him at all. However, the might that was pulling at his soul this time around was extremely powerful. If Zhang Xian let his attention waver for a moment, his soul could very well be nabbed away. Zhang Xian swiftly drove his Heaven's Path Shinqi to ward off the force tugging at his soul, and only then did he manage to steady himself. Turning his gaze to the altar once more, he soon understood something. So, this is how they carried out the killings. Without a doubt, Tianqing or the otherworldly demons must have made use of the Grade 8 formation to amplify the prowess of their soul art to bypass the defenses of the Master Teacher Pavilion. Given that it had nearly taken even his soul away, surely it would have been much easier to deal with Chen Zhe and the others. While I was trying to lure them out, they were trying to do the same. No wonder everything went so smoothly. Knowing that there was someone hiding in the area, using the altar to nab his soul and kill him, Zhang Xian narrowed his eyes sharply. As socially inept as he was, it did not mean that he was lacking in intelligence. On the contrary, as his soul depth increased, his ability to analyze and decipher situations was getting stronger and stronger. He had told Wu Shi to compliment Chen Zhe publicly in order to lure Tianqing out, and Tianqing did arrive in the end. However, he still ended up being assaulted. It seemed like the other party was no fool either. Perhaps, from the very start, the other party's goal was not to retrieve the altar but to kill him. He had set up this ploy in order to bait Tianqing, but from the looks of it now, it was apparent that the other party had already seen through his ploy. They had chosen to go along with his ploy, sending Tianqing over and forsaking him like a pawn just so as to lure him out and hunt him down. A thought suddenly came to Zhang Xian's mind. Could this be related to Vicious? Master, there's no doubt that the soul art is one of my secret arts, but judging from the lack of mastery in the technique, I am certain that it isn't another one of my body parts executing it. Otherwise, as powerful as you are, it's unlikely that you would have been able to survive it. Vicious informed Zhang Xian telepathically. Hearing those words, Zhang Xian nodded in agreement. As powerful as his Heaven's Path soul art was, it was a pity that he was still too weak at the moment. If the enemy he was facing was truly vicious, the latter would surely have been able to nab his soul easily. But if it isn't another one of the body parts, who else could it be? Zhang Xian frowned. In this moment, another bout of dizziness struck his head, and a might even greater than before began tugging at his soul. It seemed like the other party was giving it a second try after the first failure. Perhaps I should just go along with the other party to take a look. Instead of racking his head to figure out whom the culprit working against him was, it would be much easier for him just to let the other party take his soul and see the other party's face for himself. After some discussion with Vicious to learn more about the various aspects of the soul art, Zhang Xian walked up to the altar and wrote some things on it with his brush. Only after that did he release his grip on his soul, allowing the might to take away his soul. Who? His soul flew out from his glabella. My soul is currently a little too big. If I go over in such a form, it might cause the other party to put up his guard instead. It would be better if I can compress it slightly for the time being. Zhang Xian's soul was nearly 10 meters tall, and if he were to appear in such a form before the other party, he would surely expose his proficiency in soul arts. Thus, with a tap of his finger, he began driving the heavenly art of dimension unravel. In the blink of an eye, his 10 meters large soul became compressed into the size of his physical body. Who? Under the powerful suction force from the altar, Zhang Xian's soul was swiftly dragged into it. Wang! With a brilliant shimmer from the altar, Zhang Xian's soul disappeared from sight. While Zhang Xian was exploring the underground cavern beneath Chen Zhi's residence, Tian Qing had been under the relentless assault of the master teachers, and he was swiftly approaching his limits. His body was covered in wounds and fresh blood, and a mixture of desperation and despair could be seen in his eyes. As powerful as he was still unable to cope with the collaborative offense from 6 powerful experts. Tian Qing, give up. If you struggle anymore, we'll just have to kill you. Wu Shi harumphed coldly. Previously, Pavilion Master Go had already issued a warrant to apprehend Tian Qing dead or alive. If the latter still refused to submit, they did not mind dragging his corpse back to the Master Teacher Pavilion. Kill me? Try it then. I'll make sure to bring all of you down with me. Knowing that it was impossible to escape, Tian Qing roared ferociously. All of a sudden, an immense power surged within Tian Qing's body, and his body began glowing with a fearsome shade of red. Narrowing his eyes in horror, Wu Shi bellowed anxiously, "This is bad, he's going to blow himself up. Quick, seal the surroundings." The power that a half-leaving aperture realm harnessed within his body was no joke. It could easily reduce everything within a radius of 1,000 meters into cinders. Chen Zhi deserved to die, but his family members and the civilians that lived in the area were innocent. As master teachers, it was their responsibility to protect them. Yes. The crowd swiftly created a barrier around Tian Qing with their jinqi to contain the might of his explosion. There was no doubt that their barrier would be insufficient to neutralize Tian Qing's explosion, and they could very well incur severe injuries or even die from the shockwave of the explosion. However, if their efforts could at least save the lives of some, they did not think that their sacrifice would be wasted. Just as the crowd had resolved themselves to a bitter end, a voice suddenly sounded from above them. "There's no need to go through so much trouble. Let me do it instead." Raising their heads, they saw a massive cauldron falling from the sky. Tada! In the blink of an eye, the exploding Tian Qing was suddenly crushed toward the ground. On the off chance that Tian Qing managed to turn the tables, Zhang Xian had left the golden origin cauldron outside for the safety of the others. And upon seeing that the master teachers were in a bad position, that fellow immediately rushed forward to deal with the situation. Voila! After pressing Tian Qing back onto the ground, the massive body of the golden origin cauldron suddenly twisted as its cauldron cap opened, and it swallowed Tian Qing without any hesitation. Boom! Shortly after it swallowed Tian Qing, a deafening explosion suddenly sounded within the cauldron. Following which, the cap opened once more, and a puff of white smoke rose from it, as if a burp of contentment. Putong! A tattered body was coughed out of the cauldron. How revolting! It sure is hard to swallow this. The golden origin cauldron shook intensely, as if retching in disgust. However, it soon recalled that it did not have anything to vomit out, so it could only let the matter go. As powerful as Qing Tian's explosion was, it was still insufficient to blow a Saint Intermediate tier artifact, especially one like the golden origin cauldron, into pieces. On the other hand, the eyebrows of the master teachers shot up. Wu Shi had gone through many life-threatening situations with the golden origin cauldron, and he knew how powerful the latter was. It was just that he had not expected the latter to become so formidable after its reawakening. To swallow Qing Tian and survive the impact of his explosion. At this rate, it seemed like it was only a matter of time before the golden origin cauldron reached the leaving aperture realm. Zhang Jiuxiao walked up to the corpse and muttered with a complicated expression, "He's dead." Dead? Wu Shi walked up to take a look. He examined the corpse and swiftly confirmed that it was Qing Tian, no doubt about it. However, he still could hardly believe his eyes. Considering how tenacious Qing Tian had been all this while, he found his easy death a little hard to swallow. Chapter 1189, Is Someone Thinking About Me? Bring his corpse back to the master-teacher pavilion. Nevertheless, since Tian Qing was already dead, there was no use pursuing this matter anymore. Everything was finally over. Sighing deeply, Wu Shi waved his hands. Tian Qing was a person who had wielded great power. Even though he had only been a vice-pavilion master, the authority he had wielded in the Qing Tian Empire master-teacher pavilion was effectively equal to the pavilion master. It had been a matter of time before the other party was due to become an official 8-star master-teacher or even higher. No one had thought that the other party would end up dying here. Life sure was unpredictable. No matter who one offended, one should never offend Zhang Xian. It seemed like his previous decision was correct. Two of the elders walked forward to collect Tian Qing's corpse. It was at this moment that Wu Shi finally scanned the surroundings once more and asked, "Where is Zhang Shi?" As the fight a moment ago had been too intense, he had not noticed Zhang Xian's disappearance. "Master went into the passageway over there," replied the Golden Origin Cauldron swiftly. Passageway. It was only then that Wu Shi noticed the stone gate in the courtyard. Wu Shi walked up to the stone gate, and after examining it for a moment, he remarked, "This is an aura sealing formation. It seems like the stone gate was concealed by the formation before, that's why we didn't notice it." The formation had the ability to seal all auras, which had previously prevented them from perceiving the presence of the stone gate. However, the formation became undone with the rising of the stone gate, and if they still could not notice it now, they would be unworthy of being 7-star master teachers. "Let's head in to take a look," Wu Shi said as he made his way into the passageway. Zhang Jiuxiao and the others followed Wu Shi in, but before they could venture too far in, they heard a vexed voice. "Help me in." Everyone turned around and saw that the Golden Origin Cauldron had followed them in as well. However, too big, it was stuck at the entrance of the passageway. Its 3 thick legs just would not fit into the passageway no matter how it tried to squeeze in. While the Golden Origin Cauldron could enlarge itself easily, it was not as easy for it to compress itself. The others had to break open the entrance before the stuck Golden Origin Cauldron could squeeze its way into the passageway. Satisfied, the Golden Origin Cauldron followed the crowd happily down the stairs. Not too long later, they arrived at the underground chamber. They swiftly saw the lava and the altar, along with Zhang Xian, who was seated on the ground, unmoving. "Zhang Shi." The crowd swiftly gathered around Zhang Xian. Noticing that Zhang Xian was not responding, Wu Shi placed his hand on the young man, and his face suddenly paled in disbelief. "He isn't breathing, and there is no heartbeat either. He is dead. How is this possible? How could Zhang Xian die within the short period of time that they were fighting against Tian Qing? He was a celestial master teacher and a celestial saint. How could he die in somewhere as humble as this?" Just as the crowd was completely bewildered by the situation before them, the Golden Origin Cauldron's furious voice suddenly sounded. "What do you mean by my master is dead? My master is obviously cultivating some kind of formidable cultivation technique, so stop bothering him and scram to the side." Back at the Qiu Wu Palace, the Golden Origin Cauldron had once dived into the lava with Zhang Xian, and the latter had been in such a state as well. Thus, it was not too surprised by the situation before it. Cultivation technique? What kind of cultivation technique could possibly stop one's breathing and halt one's heartbeat? The master teachers frowned, not believing the Golden Origin Cauldron's words in the slightest. As knowledgeable master teachers, they had never heard of a single cultivation technique that would place one in a state reminiscent of a corpse. Zhang Jiuxiao shook his head, too. How could there possibly be such a cultivation technique in the world? He felt that the Golden Origin Cauldron was only saying those words because it was unwilling to face the reality of its master's death. As an offspring of the Zhang clan, he had seen plenty of mysterious and bewildering occurrences in the world, but a cultivation technique that halted one's breathing and heartbeat and even caused the stiffening of one's body. There was no way there could possibly be a cultivation technique like that. Those were clearly signs of death. Zhang Jiuxiao's words won the approval of the other master teachers in the area as well. The golden origin cauldron harumphed coldly. Believe whatever you want. If it had a face, it would surely have been showing a look of disdain toward those master teachers. To think that these 7-star master teachers cannot even match up to a cauldron like me in terms of knowledge, what a bunch of countryside bumpkins. Zhang Jiuxiao shook his head and said, "We'll know the truth once I use my Jinqi to check the internal state of his body." Right after saying those words, Zhang Jiuxiao immediately stretched his hand forward and placed it on Zhang Xian's body. There were clear differences between the internal state of a living human and a corpse. For one, if Zhang Xian was truly cultivating, the Jinqi in his body would surely still be active. His meridians would also be supple, and his internal organs would be filled with vitality. All of this could easily be checked by pumping a surge of Jinqi into the other party's body. As soon as Zhang Jiuxiao placed his palm on Zhang Xian's body, he suddenly felt a furious might bursting toward him. In that instant, he felt as if he had been eyed by a ravenous beast, and goosebumps swiftly rose all over his body. Instinctively, he immediately backed away, but it was already too late. A palm harnessing incomparable strength darted toward his dashing face. His face distorted hideously as his body whizzed back with astounding momentum. Bam! Pooh! Crashing heavily into the wall of the underground cavern, Zhang Jiuxiao's face turned as white as a sheet of paper, and crimson blood spurted from his mouth. The impact of that palm thrust had been so powerful that a depression of his shape had formed on the wall of the cavern, holding him firmly in place. Tears streamed down Zhang Jiuxiao's face as he cried, "I just wanted to check if you are dead or not out of worry. Did you really have to get so angry and use so much force?" As the victim, it went without saying that he knew whom the palm had come from. It was none other than the dead Zhang Xian. "It is not as if I was trying to harm you. Did you have to attack me so mercilessly?" In an instant, an unprecedented feeling of weariness consumed Zhang Jiuxiao. It seemed like ever since he became acquainted with Zhang Xian, he had never lived a single day in peace. Struggling out of the wall, he turned to look at Zhang Xian once more, only to see that the culprit who had cruelly harmed him a moment ago was still sitting on the same spot with his eyes closed. There was not the slightest bit of guilt on his face at all, as if the assault that had happened earlier was none of his business. Seeing this sight, the golden origin cauldron shook its body triumphantly as it gloated in a tone that was practically dripping with, "You reap what you sow. I told you that my master is in the midst of practicing some kind of unique cultivation technique, but you just wouldn't listen. He really is cultivating." The lips of Wu Shi and the others twitched in disbelief. They had seen plenty of cultivators who had eccentric cultivation techniques, but this was the first time they had seen something like this. Was there really a cultivation technique like this in the world? A moment later, Wu Shi recovered from his shock and instructed, "Since Principal Zhang is cultivating, let's sit here and guard him. Elder Gu, you should return to the Master Teacher Pavilion first and bring some reinforcement here to seal the area. Also, make sure to report this matter to the headquarters." "Yes." An elder nodded before leaving the underground chamber. The world around him spun and distorted. When Zhang Xian finally came to once more, he was already standing within a tattered hut. The same altar that he had encountered in the underground chamber was still beneath his feet. It seemed like he had been transported to the other end of the altar. He tried to explore the area, only to find that there was a peculiar suction force from the altar holding him firmly in place, preventing him from moving. It would be difficult for him to break free of it quickly. "Zhang Shi, we meet again." Just as Zhang Xian was about to scan the area, he suddenly heard a faint voice before him. Raising his head to take a look, he saw a copper-masked figure staring at him with his hands behind his back. "It's you." Zhang Xian frowned. The other party was the person who had brought the Grade 8 painting of the sorrowless old man to appraisal convention to have the seal on it deciphered. The copper-masked figure did not reply to that question. Instead, he stared at Zhang Xian coldly for a very long moment before asking, "You altered the content of the painting, didn't you?" "Altered?" Zhang Xian's heart skipped a beat, but he did not let it show on the surface. With an indignant frown on his face, he harumphed furiously. How can that be? Putting aside the fact that I do not have the ability to do so, as a master teacher, I would never do something as unethical as that. That would be as good as trampling on the efforts of others, and only the most despicable of scum would commit such atrocities. How can that be? The copper-masked figure narrowed his eyes as he repeated Zhang Xian's words mockingly. There are some discrepancies in the painting beneath the seal, and there's also a visible difference in the conception of the painting. Only your consciousness entered the painting throughout the entire appraisal convention, so who else could it be other than you? Back at the appraisal convention, when he saw that what lay beneath the painting was not what he had expected but a group of ladies bathing, he could hardly believe his eyes. In that instant, he felt that he had wasted many years of his life pursuing the secret of the painting. However, when he returned to his residence and studied the painting carefully, it did not take too long for him to notice that something was amiss. In the first place, the fact that he had been able to notice the presence of a seal concealed within the painting meant that his comprehension of painting was at least on par with guild leader Meng of the Painter Guild. Through his careful examination, he noticed that while the artistic style of the bathing beautiful ladies was a close imitation of the sorrowless old man's anchored painting style, there were still some discrepancies between the two. The sorrowless old man had gone to the extent of shaving off a layer of his painting to ensure that the surface remained smooth when he added in the seal. This clearly showed that he had a deep obsession for ensuring the perfection his painting, and he would never allow any flaws to plague his work. While the unsealed painting looked wholesome in the surface, upon closer examination, it was still apparent that the portion concerning the bathing beautiful ladies was leveled slightly higher than the rest of the painting. Furthermore, the colors were slightly more vibrant than the rest of the painting. From these two discrepancies, it was not too difficult to deduce that the bathing beautiful ladies had been added onto the painting recently. Corroborating that with the happenings prior to the unsealing of the painting, given that Zhang Xian was the only one who had entered the painting, it was not too difficult to deduce that he was the culprit. I must say that you have really misunderstood me. While the bathing beautiful ladies only took up a small portion of the painting, I'm sure that you are able to tell how exquisitely detailed it is. My consciousness only entered the painting for a brief instant, and given that I had to devote most of my time to analyzing the seal, how could I possibly have the time to paint such an exquisite addition to the painting? That is clearly an impossible feat. Not even the sorrowless old man would have been able to pull it off within the limited period of time I had. Zhang Xian explained himself earnestly, as if fearing that the other party would not believe him. This. The copper-masked figure frowned. This was also the issue that had confounded him while he was analyzing the matter. All in all, the other party had only been in the painting for less than 3 minutes, and within this period of time, it was nigh impossible to make an addition that fused nearly perfectly into another completed painting. Even 8-star painters would not be capable of pulling off such a feat. But there was no one else could have pulled it off other than the young man before him. Noticing the copper-masked figure's hesitation, Zhang Xian quickly added, putting aside the fact that I did not have time to pull it off, I'm also not the only one whose consciousness entered the painting that day. You aren't the only one. Indeed. Have you forgotten it already? Zhang Jiuxiao's consciousness entered the painting as well, only to be attacked by the spirit and sprout durians on his head, Zhang Xian said. Hearing those words, the face of the copper-masked figure darkened. You're right. Zhang Jiuxiao's consciousness entered the painting as well. He's from the Zhang clan, and surely I need not say much about the capabilities of those from a sage clan. Furthermore, the Zhang clan is particularly known for snatching items by force. Putting aside a painting, they would even snatch a living human without any hesitation. Do you remember how he said that he knew a way to decipher the seal? Perhaps, he might have used some kind of artifact to alter the contents of the painting before faking his failure so that you wouldn't suspect him. Zhang Xian harumphed indignantly. The Zhang clan. The lips of the copper-masked figure twitched slightly as fear crept into his eyes. Ah, Chu. Shortly after applying some medicine and feeling the swelling on his face alleviating slightly, Zhang Jiuxiao suddenly sneezed. Is someone thinking about me? After being traumatized time and time again, it was reassuring for him to know that he was at least still on someone's mind. Chapter 1190, The Demands of the Copper-Masked Figure. After recovering from his shock, the copper-masked figure quickly shook his head and said, "No, that doesn't make sense. If the Zhang clan intended to make a move on me, there would be no need for them to do it so discreetly. They would have just crushed me openly." The Zhang clan was known to be the #1 clan of the master-teacher continent, possessing many experts. If they had known about the secret behind the painting, they would have just found him and killed him directly. There was no need for them to go about it in such a roundabout manner. It was true that the master-teacher pavilion did ensure some degree of order and equality in the world, but rules were meaningless before absolute strength. And the Zhang clan wielded such absolute strength to overlook the rules. I don't know how else I can prove it to you, but what I saw in the painting back then was indeed the bathing beauties. Seeing that the other party did not trust him, Zhang Xian anxiously urged, "If you don't believe me, feel free to ask around. I am known in town for my honesty and humility." Enough. Knowing that it would only be a waste of mind to argue who the culprit was, the copper-masked figure harumphed coldly. "There is no point arguing over this now. The reason I have brought you here today is to have you restore the painting. If you get it done, I can consider letting you off." Even though someone had added new content on top of the painting, it should still be possible to restore what was beneath at the hands of a sufficiently skilled painter. This was especially so given that the bathing beautiful ladies had been added recently, and there was a clear contrast between it and the rest of the painting. Given that the young man before him had been able to decipher the seal on the painting easily, achieving what neither him nor guild leader Meng were able to accomplish, there was no doubt that his mastery in painting had already reached the pinnacle of Qingyuan Empire, perhaps even comparable to the sorrowless old man's. If the young man were to work on the painting, there was a good chance that they would be able to restore the original painting. However, Zhang Xian shook his head and sighed. "It's not that I don't want to help you, but even I am unable to do it." "You can't do it." The copper-masked figure suddenly sneered coldly as killing intent lit up within his eyes. "It seems that you still haven't understood the situation you are in. You are currently just a mere soul. If your pitiful brain is unable to process what that means, let me phrase it out clearly for you. You are already a dead man." Dead? Horror surfaced in Zhang Xian's eyes. As if he was unable to believe what he had just heard, he exclaimed with widened eyes, "I am dead?" He quickly lowered his head, only to see his translucent body. In that instant, his vision darkened, and he fainted from shock. Seeing the other party's actions, the copper-masked figure clawed at his hair in frenzy. Given that he had used a secret art to nab away the other party's soul, anyone who did not have a screw loose should have noticed what was going on. To put on such an elaborate act and even faint on the spot. "Brother, do you think that I don't know that souls can't faint?" Under normal circumstances, given that the young man's soul had been bound in place and his physical body was already dead, shouldn't the young have been eager to heed his commands? To put on such an act. What the heck was going on? Suppressing his urge to rush forward and tear the young man before him apart, the copper-masked figure clenched his jaws and spat coldly, "Stop your act. Without my permission, you won't even be able to commit suicide, let alone faint." "Ah. I can't faint here." Zhang Xian sat back up regretfully before shaking his hand leisurely. "Forget it, I won't faint for the time being then. However, I was really not lying to you when I said that I am unable to restore the painting to its original state." Hidden within the painting was Kong Shi's silhouette. Considering the implications of the matter, there was no way he would restore the painting to its original state. On the other hand, seeing the other party shrug away his fainting act without the slightest bit of embarrassment, the copper-masked figure felt so furious that he could have exploded from rage at any moment. It took him a few large breaths before he managed to suppress his rage. Narrowing his eyes, he spoke in a callous tone. Don't think that I have no way of dealing with you just because you are a soul. Since I was able to drag you here, naturally, I know of ways to put you through suffering that would make you wish that you were dead. Since I am already dead, why don't you just have me killed once and for all? Zhang Xian replied leisurely, paying no heed to the copper-masked figure's threats at all. You. The copper-masked figure's breathing hastened from anger, and his chest fluctuated intensely. Since you don't know what is good for you, I'll just have to use soul search on you then. For your arrogance, I shall make sure that your soul dissipates for good. Voila! Right after saying those words, he grabbed forward, and a powerful might suddenly burst forward. Seeing the movements of the copper-masked figure, a glint flashed across Zhang Xian's eyes. That's a soul oracle technique. The main reason he had allowed himself to be captured by the copper-masked figure was to see who the other party was and what the other party was up to. He did not think that the other party would actually be able to utilize the means of a soul oracle. Tzzzzzzzz. As shocked as Zhang Xian was, he did not resist the copper-masked figure's offense. Instead, he allowed the latter to enter his mind easily. This was because he could tell with a glance that it was not soul search but soul read. Soul search was an extremely violent technique. It allowed one to learn what was in the mind of another, but in the process of doing so, it would destroy the other's soul as well, resulting in death. On the other hand, soul read was much less powerful than soul search, but it would not harm the soul. It seemed like the copper-masked figure still hoped that Zhang Xian would be able to restore the painting for him, so he dared not kill him straight. Let me see what you know. Harumphing coldly, the copper-masked figure delved his consciousness into Zhang Xian's mind, and very soon, he found what he wanted to know. A frown emerged on the forehead of the copper-masked figure as he muttered in disbelief. You really don't know the secret behind the seal. Through his soul read, he could tell that the other party really knew nothing about the content beneath the seal. In other words, he was not the perpetrator who painted on the bathing beautiful ladies on the painting. Furthermore, in his search, he had found that despite the other party's brazen personality, he was really an upright and talented master teacher. It looks like I have really gotten it wrong this time around. After seeing all that, the copper-masked figure retracted his consciousness from Zhang Xian's mind. He had been extremely certain that it was the young man who had altered the painting before, but the evidence before him had smashed the theory to pieces. However, since he had already captured the young man, he should at least get the young man to restore the painting for him. Otherwise, his effort over the years would have really been in vain. He really is a soul oracle, and from the looks of it, it seems like he has a close relationship with Tian Qing and the others. While the copper-masked figure was reading Zhang Xian's mind, Zhang Xian was also secretly reading the other party. His understanding of soul arts was much higher than the copper-masked figure's, so it was not too difficult for him to bypass the other party's mental defense. Nevertheless, for fear of alarming the other party, he only probed at the surface of the other party's mind, so he only received some basic information. Based on the results he had received, the copper-masked figure had a very close relationship with King Zhongqing and Tian Qing. That was how he had managed to convince Tian Qing to snoop into Chenja's residence despite knowing the dangers to lure their group here while he hid at the altar, preparing to nab Zhang Xian's soul when the opportunity was ripe. I was initially intending to conduct a soul search, but out of mercy, I'll give you one last chance. Right now, you have two options before you. Knowing that the young man before him really knew nothing at all, the copper-masked figure harumphed in disdain. The first option, restore the painting for me, and not only will I spare your soul, I'll also bring you back to life, granting you greater power than you possess at the moment. The second option, succumb to my soul search and vanish from the face of this world. Your mastery in painting is indeed praiseworthy, but there are plenty of painters in the world who are more skilled than you. Even without you, it's only a matter of time before I manage to restore the contents of the painting. You'll bring me back to life? Zhang Xian asked in bewilderment. That's right. The copper-masked figure waved his hand, and a body appeared before his eyes. This is known as a soulless metal humanoid. As long as you accomplish what I ask of you, I'll allow your soul to reside in it, and through it, you will be able to continue living and existing as an ordinary human. Soulless metal humanoid. Zhang Xian was surprised. He could tell that the other party's soulless metal humanoid was of a far higher grade than what he had seen before, most probably crafted with the body of a primordial spirit realm pinnacle expert. Not only so, the craftsmanship was also particularly exquisite, making it reminiscent of a real human. If a soul were to be deposited into it, the average 7-star master teacher would not even notice that it was an artificial body. Seeing Zhang Xian's astonished expression, the copper-masked figure smirked gleefully. Even if you don't have much of an understanding of the soul oracle occupation, as a master teacher, you should have at least heard of the soulless metal humanoids, right? With it, not only will your current fighting prowess be enhanced, more importantly, I will also grant you a different identity and place you in a position of great power. Place me in a position of great power. Could it be that both Tian Qing and King Zhongqing are soulless metal humanoids? Zhang Xian's eyes narrowed in shock. To be able to become the vice head of the Master Teacher Pavilion, there was no doubt that Master Teacher Tian Qing really did exist. There was no way the Master Teacher Pavilion would make the huge error of allowing a soulless metal humanoid to become a Vice Pavilion Master. However, it was possible that the real Tian Qing had been killed at some point in time, and his body had been forged into a soulless metal humanoid. Through using a soul to drive Tian Qing's soulless metal humanoid, the enemy would be able to impersonate him, assuming the powerful role as the vice head of the Master Teacher Pavilion. Furthermore, there would be no one who would check on his identity as he was already verified to be a human. That might have been the case for King Zhongqing as well. If that was truly the case, this would really be frightening. Just thinking about how the fake Tian Qing had been able to fool the eyes of the others for so many years, only exposing himself in order to kill Zhang Xian. How many more undercover spies did the enemy have? It was no wonder the Master Teacher Pavilion had destroyed the Soul Oracles without any hesitation. If the Soul Oracles had truly attempted to plot their vengeance, just this ability of theirs would throw the Master Teacher Pavilion into huge chaos. Just imagine being put in a state where one could not recognize who was a friend and who was an enemy, being forced to doubt everyone. King Zhongqing isn't a soulless metal humanoid. It isn't as easy to forge one as you think. The copper-masked figure refuted Zhang Xian's words. He isn't. The copper-masked figure harumphed disdainfully. He's just a loyal dog. Then, what about Tian Qing? Zhang Xian asked on. Tian Qing. At this point, the copper-masked figure sneered coldly before turning toward Zhang Xian. Do you wish to see my face? Zhang Xian's heart skipped a beat upon hearing those words. Keeping his calm, he said, I do. Given the current situation, it's really hard for me to trust you. As you have said, I'm already dead. I have nothing else to lose, and there's no need for me to go all out to help the person who killed me. He had been curious about the true identity of the copper-masked figure for a very long time, but the latter had never used a battle technique before him. The previous soul search had not registered as a battle technique to the Library of Heaven's Path, so he was not able to compile a book on the other party through that. As such, he still had no idea whom the copper-masked figure truly was. It would be best if he could convince the copper-masked figure to take off his mask. Humph. Tough words for a person in my grasp. You might be dead already, but your soul is still in my grasp. As long as I wish to, I can put you through suffering beyond your imagination, the copper-masked figure sneered as he slowly took the mask off his face. At this point, the young man before him was already no threat. Firmly bound to the altar, he could claim the young man's life any time he wanted to, so he did not fear the latter's retaliation. Thus, it was not a big deal for him to show the other party his appearance. Zhang Xian stared intently at the face of the copper-masked figure as the mask was slowly pried open. A look of disbelief gradually crept onto his face. How could it be you? Chapter 1191, I am the Qing Tian Emperor. The person before him was none other than Tian Qing. But wasn't the other party fighting with Wu Shi and the others? More importantly, the first time he met the copper-masked figure, Tian Qing had definitely been confined within the Master-Teacher Pavilion's prison. No matter how powerful Tian Qing was, there was no way he could escape from his cell without alarming the Master-Teacher Pavilion, so, how could he possibly be the copper-masked figure? Zhang Xian could not believe his eyes. Everything had already exceeded his expectations. Indeed. Tian Qing and I are the same person. Tian Qing nodded. The young man before him had been putting on a fearless and nonchalant exterior ever since he had been dragged here, so he was delighted to see the shocked expression on the other party's face. No, that's not right. You aren't Tian Qing but the Qing Tian Emperor, right? Frowning, Zhang Xian revealed his deduction. He had been thinking over the issue over the past few days, and he was confident that the Qing Tian Emperor had a part to play in his framing. Else, there was truly no reason for King Zhongqing and Tian Qing to go to such lengths to frame him. Just that, there were still some details that he had yet to make sense of. You are an intelligent person. However, you should know that there are some things in the world that you should never meddle with. Hearing Zhang Xian's words, the Qing Tian Emperor's voice suddenly grew deep and sinister. A burst of killing intent suddenly swept through the surroundings, leaving one feeling as if one had been suddenly plunged into hell. The killing intent was even purer than the Skyleaf King's. Those who possessed weaker mental fortitude could have very well fainted as soon as they came into contact with this overwhelming aura. Since you have already figured out who I am, there's no need for me to put on an act anymore then. I am sure you should know about the irreconcilable conflict between the otherworldly demonic tribe and the darned humans. Submit to me, and I can grant you a life of wealth and power. Otherwise, I will have no choice but to end your life. Tian Qing did not deny Zhang Xian's accusations. Instead, he gazed down upon Zhang Xian as if he was looking at a mere corpse. Since everything had already been revealed, there was no need to beat around the bush any longer. If you are both the Qing Tian Emperor and Tian Qing, then who is the person fighting outside with Wu Shi and the others? You, as an otherworldly demon, no matter how good you are at disguising, surely the headquarters would have looked into your background when you became the Vice Pavilion Master, so how could you possibly have passed their checks? Zhang Xian uttered in disbelief. No matter how he thought about the matter, it just did not make sense. It might be possible for the Qing Tian Emperor to act as an ordinary master teacher. The headquarters could not possibly check the background of every single master teacher spread across the master teacher continent after all, but he wielded great power over the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion. It was extremely difficult to believe that the headquarters would make such a severe oversight. If the Master Teacher Pavilion was really so incompetent as to remain unaware when the otherworldly demonic tribe had already seeped into their ranks, it would have been destroyed long ago. With a cold sneer, hostility welled up in the Qing Tian Emperor's eyes as he harumphed menacingly. Tian Qing was the incarnation of my will. I slowly forged his identity as a master teacher step by step over a long 800 years, but who would have thought that you would ruin the preparations that I made? Do you know how much I want to kill you right now? In order to build up Tian Qing, he had paid an extremely heavy price, sacrificing the lives of many of his tribesmen. If not for the damned young man before him, Tian Qing would still have been the vice-head of the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion, wielding great power. In a short few days, 800 years of his effort had gone down the drain. How could he possibly take something like that lightly? However, it was fortunate that it was not all in vain. Over the years, he had managed to gather plenty of crucial intelligence, allowing him to obtain the various items that he required. At this point, he was just one last step away from success. If not for that, he would have surely killed the young man before him without any hesitation instead of wasting so many words on him. Incarnation of your will. Zhang Xian was taken aback from a moment before swiftly coming to a realization. In his previous battle against Tianqing, he had found that there was a fatal flaw in the other party's primordial spirit, which made it highly unlikely for the other party to ever reach the leaving aperture realm in his lifetime. Back then, he had thought that the other party might have just erred in his cultivation somewhere along the way, but it turned out that the error was actually fundamental. As the incarnation of a mere will, it went without saying that the soul was bound to be incomplete. It was already a miracle that Tianqing could cultivate to the primordial spirit realm with an incomplete soul. Any further than that was nigh impossible. Perhaps due to Tianqing being an incarnation, the Library of Heaven's Path considered him a separate existence from the Qingtian Emperor, resulting in its inability to draw the links between the two. From the start to the end, Zhang Xian had never considered such a possibility before because of the sheer impossibility in it. A will was effectively a fragment of a soul, so it was fundamentally of the yin attribute. It was fatal for a newborn baby to be plagued with yin energy, and the chances of survival were practically null. Furthermore, such an incarnation was against the laws of nature, an act that the heavens would not condone. Thus, even if the baby survived by some chance, one would have to pay a heavy price in order to prevent the baby from dying. As such, even if the occupation that boasted the greatest understanding of souls, the soul oracles, were to attempt to reincarnate a will, it was likely that there would not even be a single successful case out of 10,000 attempts. Otherwise, Mo Hunsheng would not have been so desperate to fuse together with the Nine Hearts Lotus to gain a new body for himself. On top of that, a will would automatically go into a dormant state upon reincarnation. There were those who were unable to unlock the memories of their previous life until the moment of their death, thus achieving nothing significant in their lifetime. Such a symptom was known as the void of reincarnation. To make matters worse, the attempt to reincarnate one's will was also highly damaging to one's soul. This effectively limited each person to a single attempt in their lifetime. As such, only those who had been cornered would resort to will reincarnation, hoping that the infinitesimal possibility of success would come their way. To think that the Qingtian Emperor not only succeeded, but his incarnation grew to become a 7-star pinnacle master teacher, governing the master teacher pavilion of a conferred empire? While the Qingtian Emperor must have assisted in some ways, it was still a particularly formidable feat. The Qingtian Emperor harumphed coldly. That's right. I advise you not to test my patience. Since I have already revealed my identity to you, you should know that unless you submit to me and seal a soul contract with me, there's no way that you are getting out of this. I'll put you through endless torture and... The reason he fearlessly revealed his identity before the young man was because he did not fear the latter leaking the secret. Everything was within his control. If the young man attempted anything, it would only take a single thought for him to kill the lad. Fine, I'll submit. Zhang Xian interrupted the Qingtian Emperor's words. Ah! The Qingtian Emperor was taken aback. Having lived among the humans for many years, he knew how firmly master teachers held on to their beliefs and faith. Considering how arrogant the young man before him was, going to the extent of even crashing the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion upon being accused of siding with the enemy, he had thought that it would be a long fight to get the latter to submit to him. Who knew that the latter would agree to it so heartily? What happened to the unwavering will that master teacher should have? The Qingtian Emperor eyed Zhang Xian suspiciously for a moment before harumphing coldly. Words are empty. Offer your soul. As skeptical as he was about the young man's intentions, he knew that once the latter offered his soul to him, there was no way the latter would be able to betray him anymore. Of course, of course. Zhang Xian nodded. But before that, I would like to confirm one thing first. Will you really give me a suitable soulless metal humanoid so that I can continue living as I did? The Qingtian Emperor waved his hand derisively. You don't have to worry about that. In the end, it seemed like the young man was just another spineless coward who would abandon his beliefs and faith for his own life. But again, the threat of death was indeed scary, especially to cultivators who boasted long lives. The older one became, the more vivid one's fear of death and losing everything they had would become, and not even master teachers were spared from this rule. That was also how Yu Su had ended up succumbing to the otherworldly demons back then. Then, Zhang Xian hesitated for a brief moment before mustering his courage to ask, "Can you tell me the method of entering a soulless metal humanoid and let me give it a try first? I want to confirm that there's indeed a way for me to continue living before I submit to you." This. The Qingtian Emperor frowned. Somehow, he felt like Zhang Xian was up to something. However, looking at the young man's innocent face, he suddenly recalled the memories he had seen in young man's head earlier, and since it was impossible for the young man to turn the tables against him, he eventually relented with a nod. "All right then. The method to entering the soulless golden humanoid is very simple." The Qingtian Emperor swiftly explained the method to enter and control the soulless metal humanoid. "All right, I got it." Seeing that the other party's explanation was essentially similar to what he had learned from Mo Hunsheng, Zhang Xian nodded. In truth, he had already compiled a Heaven's Path manual regarding controlling a soulless metal humanoid, and he had even practiced it before. In fact, this was the very method that he had used to place his severed soul into the Nine Hearts Lotus to make his clone. After which, Zhang Xian pretended to struggle but to no avail. With a helpless tone, he said, "Set me free for a moment. I want to try entering the soulless metal humanoid. Don't try to pull anything. I am the one who forged the soulless metal humanoid, so it goes without saying that I have a way to destroy it as well. Don't naively think that you will be able to go against me just because you have gained a body," the Qingtian Emperor warned callously. Zhang Xian shook his head and sighed deeply. "As a Saint Tu Dan cultivator, I won't be able to tap into the full strength of the soulless metal humanoid no matter how powerful it is. I won't be a match for you even if I do try to pull something." Hearing those words, the Qingtian Emperor hesitated for a moment before eventually nodding. It seemed like he was really being too jumpy, worrying over the most insignificant of issues. The other party was right. As a Saint Tu Dan cultivator, the other party could not possibly tap into the full strength of the Saint Four Dan's soulless metal humanoid. Since that was the case, what did he have to fear? Thus, with a light flick of his hand, the altar gleamed brilliantly. Following which, Zhang Xian felt the bindings holding him in place loosening, allowing his soul to move freely. "Let me give it a try," Zhang Xian said as he made his way over to the soulless metal humanoid. A moment later, the soulless metal humanoid opened its eyes. Zhang Xian tried moving in it a little, and it felt no different from controlling a puppet. He could not help but shake his head in disappointment. It seemed like a Saint Four Dan's soulless metal humanoid was still ultimately a mere puppet. A real human had senses that allowed him to receive information from his surroundings, but a puppet did not. While it was possible for a soul to survive by housing itself within a puppet, it was effectively no different from driving a corpse. It was no wonder few would choose to learn soul arts despite the great longevity of soul oracles. There was more to life than to just continue existing. If a cultivator had to live amid the darkness for their entire life, deprived of everything that made them feel alive, perhaps death would have been a better option. Watching as the young man entered the soulless metal humanoid, the Qingtian Emperor heaved a sigh of relief. He had attempted to use his words to distract the young man from it, but the fact was that as the creator of the soulless metal humanoid, he wielded absolute control over it. In other words, it was just another cage to encase the young man's soul. If he willed it so, he could kill the other party whenever he wanted to. Nevertheless, to be absolutely safe, he still wanted to bind the young man with a soul contract. Thus, he turned to the other party and said, "Now that you have tested the soulless metal humanoid for yourself, it's about time for you to offer your soul." "All right." Zhang Xian nodded. Maneuvering the soulless metal humanoid to the altar, he said, "I'll be offering my soul to you through this altar then." After saying those words, a will slowly rose from the glabella of the soulless metal humanoid. Not expecting the young man to be so active about this issue, the Qingtian Emperor nodded in approval. He also walked up to the altar and drew his soul out of his body. As he cultivated the soul cultivation techniques from the soul oracles, his soul harnessed incomparably frigid energy, leaving others not daring to approach. The foundation of a soul oracle lay in their soul, so it would be better to bind the young man's soul to his soul instead of his body. Start the ritual, the Qingtian emperor declared loudly. He had thought that it would take more effort to deal with this young man, but it seemed like the other party was still too young and inexperienced. Once the soul contract was sealed, he would be able to peer into the other party's thoughts. By then, the other party would dare not to formulate the slightest thought of rebellion. All right. Zhang Xian nodded. He maneuvered his soulless metal humanoid to walk around the altar before abruptly slapping its palm on the altar. Wang! The inscriptions suddenly lit up, and a powerful suction force drew in the soul of the Qingtian emperor, wanting to devour it whole. Horrified by the changes, the Qingtian emperor exclaimed, How do you know the method to triggering the altar? Chapter 1192, A Knife to Me, A Knife to You. The altar had been specially crafted by a method known only to the otherworldly demonic tribe, and it required the Jinqi of slaughter to activate. More importantly, it concerned a secret of the soul oracles, so how could a master teacher possibly be able to activate it? The Qingtian emperor felt as if he was going insane. Others might not have known how fearsome the altar was, but he did. Once it was activated, it could draw even the primordial spirit of a leaving aperture realm expert into it easily. Tzzzzzzzzzzzz. Before the Qingtian emperor could even give any further thought to the situation he was in, he suddenly felt the suction force growing stronger and stronger. Despite his resistance, his soul was slowly dragged by the suction force, seemingly about to be taken over to the other side at any moment. You are courting death. Frightened and alarmed, the Qingtian emperor bellowed furiously. At this point, he was fully aware that he had fallen for the young man's schemes. He swiftly extended his soul energy toward the will floating in the air, wanting to grab and destroy it. However, the will seemed to be completely unaffected by the suction of the altar. It leisurely made its way back into the soulless golden body. Not expecting the other party to escape from his grasp, the Qingtian emperor's rage crescendoed. Humph, I am the creator of the soulless metal humanoid. It takes nothing more than a mere thought for me to claim your life. With a furious roar, the Qingtian emperor swiftly sealed the pores of the soulless metal humanoid, preventing the young man's soul from escaping it. After which, he sent the energy harnessed within the metal humanoid into chaos, putting it on the verge of explosion. As the creator of the soulless metal humanoid, he was able to have it explode at his whim. This was the exact same method that Zhang Xian had used to subdue the Jade Leaf King back then. There's no need for you to go through so much trouble, said Zhang Xian nonchalantly. Following which, with a resounding puha, the soulless metal humanoid was abruptly ripped in two down the middle. A massive 10-meter-tall soul appeared from within the body. It should have been impossible for any soul to escape once the pores of the soulless metal humanoid were sealed. However, by abruptly enlarging his soul by undoing the heavenly art of dimension unravel, Zhang Xian managed to tear the metal humanoid in two. Seeing Zhang Xian decisively tearing the soulless metal humanoid in two, the Qingtian emperor widened his eyes in astonishment. This is your soul. How is it so big? As a soul oracle, he understood the significance of the size of a soul, and the one before him was actually 10 meters large. Just how much soul energy could that 10 meters large soul possibly contain? This is impossible. No, wait a moment. You are a soul oracle. Realization suddenly struck the Qingtian emperor as his mouth widened in shock. Only a soul oracle could possibly possess such an enormous soul, but wasn't the other party a master teacher? How could a master teacher possibly be a soul oracle? The Qingtian emperor felt as if his mind was going to blow from the insanity unfolding before his eyes. It had been countless years since the heritage of the soul oracles had disappeared from the face of the world. He had needed to pay a heavy price before he managed to lay his hands on a couple of soul arts, but who would have thought a master teacher as talented as the other party would actually be a full-fledged soul oracle? This was truly a shocker. Don't worry, I'm not going to do anything much. Watching as the Qingtian Emperor went into a frenzy from the situation, Zhang Xian consoled him insincerely as he slowly made his way over to the other party's immobile body. With a thought, his soul swiftly shrunk back to the size of a human before diving into the glabella of the immobile body. What are you trying to do? This sight immediately sent the Qingtian Emperor into a panic. That was his body. If the other party were to possess his body, his soul would have nowhere else to go. What am I doing? Like I told you, I am not doing anything much. Didn't you teach me how to utilize a soulless metal humanoid earlier? I'm just trying to see if it will work on your body since the soulless metal humanoid you gave me earlier has exploded. As Zhang Xian spoke, his soul successfully entered the Qingtian Emperor's body. A moment later, the eyes of the immobile body opened, and it began stretching its neck lazily. Not bad. Feels much better than the soulless metal humanoid. The Qingtian Emperor smiled in delight before casually waving his hand at the soul on the altar. Boom! Killing intent burst into the surroundings as immense might poured forth like the relentless rapid tides of a river. Feeling the strength harnessed within the body, Zhang Xian could not help but remark, how powerful. Even though he had roughly 20 otherworldly demon puppets in his storage ring, they came nowhere close to competing with the one he was currently possessing. To make an analogy, if the strength of the otherworldly demon puppets was only a little pond, the body he was currently possessing would be an endless sea. The Qingtian Emperor felt as if he would explode from rage. He was an emperor of the otherworldly demonic tribe, but not only did he fall for the ploys of a mere human, more importantly, the latter even used his own body to attack his soul. Be it his body or his soul, he could not afford to have either of them injured. Damn it! Knowing that he would die if he did not protect himself, the Qingtian Emperor swiftly gathered his soul energy together and formed a devastating force that clashed with Zhang Xian's slap. Boom! The collision ended with the physical body that Zhang Xian controlled consecutively retreating 8 steps. He's a true leaving aperture realm expert. Zhang Xian's face darkened. He had thought that the Qingtian Emperor would be at quasi-leaving aperture realm as well, the same as Hall Master Xing and Pavilion Master Go, but who knew that he would be a true leaving aperture realm expert, one who had undergone the lightning ordeal. The souls of soul oracles were of the Yin attribute, making it more difficult for them to clear the lightning ordeal compared to ordinary primordial spirits. The fact that the Qingtian Emperor had been able to succeed went to show that he possessed exceptional talent in cultivation. Come out of my body. Ignoring Zhang Xian's shock, the Qingtian Emperor's soul rushed forward and launched another wave of attacks. In an instant, Zhang Xian felt the air freezing around him, making it difficult for him to move. This was a method similar to what he had faced from Pavilion Master Go during the pavilion crashing a few days earlier, but its might was several times stronger. If Pavilion Master Go had been able to draw forth such strength as well, he would have admitted defeat on the spot, thus resulting in the failure of his pavilion crashing. After his body was bound in place, Zhang Xian quickly felt a powerful suction force tugging at his soul, attempting to forcefully pull his soul out from the body. Calm down, calm down. I'll come out, alright? Knowing that the Qingtian Emperor would not rest until his soul was out of the other party's body, Zhang Xian shook his head. He quickly raised his fist and struck his own chest forcefully. Pang! Zhang Xian was knocked back from the sheer impact of that strike, and a mouthful of crimson blood spewed from his mouth. That single strike had nearly killed the body on the spot. The Qingtian Emperor roared furiously. Can you get any more shameless than that? That's my body. Pang! Flustered, the Qingtian Emperor watched helplessly as the other party sank another palm into his body. Pooh! More fresh blood spurted into the air. Stop it, stop it! Tightly bound by the altar, the Qingtian Emperor's soul was unable to break free and protect his body at all. Completely powerless, he could only shout again and again. At this rate, his body might really be utterly destroyed from the young man's self-harming. Even if he survived the ordeal, his cultivation would surely suffer a sharp decline. You stop first, and then I'll stop. Ignoring the Qingtian Emperor's bellows, Zhang Xian continued striking his body relentlessly. Fine, fine, I'll stop. With a look dyed with hatred, the Qingtian Emperor gritted his teeth as he reluctantly retracted his hand. He had no choice but to stop, or else the young man might just destroy his body for good. If so, it would be meaningless even if he managed to force the other party out of his body. Boom. However, right after he retracted his control over the surrounding space, freeing the young man to move as he pleased, the Qingtian Emperor suddenly saw a palm enlarging swiftly before him. It seemed like the other party had no intention of stopping even when he did. You at #UN%. The Qingtian Emperor cursed frenziedly. When had he, the emperor of the Qingtian lineage, ever suffered such grievances? There was no way out of this situation at all. The other party would kill his body if he made a move, but if he did not make a move, the other party would continue attacking his soul. He was doomed no matter what he did. Stop. I'm telling you to stop. The Qingtian Emperor howled furiously as he gathered his soul energy once more to fend off the young man's offense. However, before the palm strike could reach him, the young man abruptly changed the trajectory of the palm strike to hit himself instead. Pu. The strike was far more vicious this time around. Fresh blood spurted wildly all over the place, a sign that the organs of the body might have sustained irreparable damage. Panicked, the Qingtian Emperor quickly withdrew his strength to appease the young man, only to see the other party sending yet another palm strike toward him. Unable to retaliate, the Qingtian Emperor felt his soul gradually growing weaker and weaker. To think that he, a leaving aperture realm expert and one of the very few soul oracles existing in the world, would be cornered by a Saint Dan brat to this extent. He really felt his sanity being challenged. How can there be such a shameless person in the world? Aren't you a master teacher? Shouldn't master teachers be righteous and honest? How could you possess my body and hold it hostage as you attack my soul? This is unfair. Really, really unfair. How am I supposed to fight against that? I can't let this continue. At this rate, either my soul will dissipate, or my body will be crippled. The Qingtian Emperor thought grimly. Admittedly, the young man's underhanded measures were truly effective. By holding his body hostage, there was no way he would dare make a move against the young man, thus allowing the young man to freely attack his soul. The Qingtian Emperor racked his mind for a solution to get him out of the quandary he was in, but nothing came to mind. Eventually, as his soul gradually sustained more and more damage, he lost the strength to withstand the suction force from the altar, and, he disappeared into the altar. Watching as the other party was absorbed into the other side of the altar, Zhang Xian's eyes suddenly widened in alarm. Shit! He suddenly realized that he had made a mistake. He had used the suction force of the altar to limit the Qingtian Emperor's movements, but he had neglected the fact that his physical body was still lying on the other side. If the Qingtian Emperor made a move against his body in the meantime, he would be in deep trouble. I must quickly make my way over as well. Knowing that there was no time to lose, Zhang Xian quickly drew his soul out of the Qingtian Emperor's body and stowed the body into a storage ring. He had come over in his soul form, so he did not have his storage ring with him. As such, he used the Qingtian Emperor's one instead. Without wasting any time, he quickly hid the storage ring at a secret location before swiftly traveling through the altar as well. Hula! With a brilliant flash of light, Zhang Xian vanished as well. The Qingtian Emperor's soul appeared in the underground chamber. What's that? Is that a soul oracle? As the Qing Tian Emperor's soul harnessed overwhelming yin energy, it was swiftly noticed by Wu Shi and the others as soon as it traveled over, and they swiftly rose to their feet in alarm. Why are there so many master teachers here? Out of worry, Wu Shi had called for around 30 master teachers from the Master Teacher Pavilion to guard Zhang Xian while he was cultivating and explore the underground chamber for clues, but who knew that the Qing Tian Emperor would suddenly appear at this moment? If they capture me, I will be doomed. Goosebumps rose all over the Qing Tian Emperor's body. In his injured state, there was no way he could match so many master teachers simultaneously. Even as a leaving Aperture Realm expert, he could very well lose his life. Just as the Qing Tian Emperor was scanning his surroundings to formulate a countermeasure, he suddenly caught sight of Zhang Xian's unmoving body, and a sharp glint surfaced in his eyes. Wait a moment, isn't that his body? Ha ha ha, wonderful. Since you possessed my body, I shall take yours as well. So. He swiftly flitted his way over. Since you were the one who started it, don't blame me for this. Let's see who will have the last laugh. Chapter 1193, Are you looking for me? Is that Soul Oracle trying to possess Zhang Shi? Quick, stop him. Sensing the Soul Oracle swiftly making its way toward Zhang Xian, Wu Shi and the others narrowed their eyes in astonishment. They swiftly moved to intercept the Soul Oracle. Even though the Qing Tian Emperor's soul had been tempered by the leaving Aperture ordeal, the cold yin aura that shrouded around it was still very apparent. It was easily discernible through one's spiritual perception. Walala! Many surges of energy burst forth toward the Qing Tian Emperor, wanting to strike him down. Humph! Under the barrage of attacks, even the Qing Tian Emperor was unable to get off completely unscathed. Nevertheless, his eyes still narrowed in tenacity and callousness. The reason he had been completely helpless before Zhang Xian previously was because the latter had possessed his body, so he had not dared execute his strongest moves for fear that he would injure his own body. On the other hand, while the master teachers before him were not too powerful, they were still insufficient to stop him. Seal, the Qing Tian Emperor bellowed as he raised his finger. Voila! A ripple swept through the surroundings, and all of a sudden, it was as if the air in the underground chamber had been frozen by some compelling might. In the blink of an eye, it was as if everyone was standing in a marshland, severely limiting their movements and attacks. He's a true leaving Aperture Realm expert. Zhang Jiuxiao exclaimed anxiously. One who wielded enough strength to seal all of their attacks simultaneously, there was no doubt about it, the Soul Oracle had already undergone the lightning ordeal and successfully reached true leaving Aperture Realm. Against an expert of the other party's caliber, their numerical advantage did not mean much. Wu Shi also swiftly came to the same conclusion. Knowing that the Soul Oracle before them was not a weak foe, he quickly bellowed, Soaring Dragon Formation. The Soaring Dragon Formation was a formation that every master teacher in the Qingyuan Empire Master Teacher Pavilion would practice in case of emergency situations. Voila! A moment after Wu Shi issued the command, the disciplined master teachers had already formed the formation. The combined strength of over 20 master teachers quickly overwhelmed the seal that the Qing Tian Emperor had cast over the surroundings, causing the seal to shatter as if a glacier breaking into ice shards. A leaving Aperture Realm cultivator still was not qualified to come into contact with spatial laws yet. As such, the seal that they set up was not, in the truest sense, a sealing of space but a forceful impediment measure set up through their overwhelming strength. If there was another might that had exceeded the strength of the seal they had put up, the seal would shatter in an instant. On the other hand, the Qing Tian Emperor did not expect the master teachers to react so swiftly to his attack and break his seal in an instant. Not daring to hesitate in the least, he used the temporary lapse in the master teacher's defenses as they were dealing with the seal to dash right toward Zhang Xian before diving into the latter's glabella. Ha ha ha! Having successfully entered Zhang Xian's body, an inexplicable feeling of joy spread across the Qing Tian Emperor's entirety, and he could not help but burst into hearty laughter. Trying to kill me? Now that I am in that bastard's body, let's see what you can do about me. Principal Zhang. Watching as the Soul Oracle successfully bypassed their defenses and possessed Zhang Xian, the eyes of Wu Shi and the others reddened in panic. Even with their limited understanding of soul oracles, they knew that once a soul successfully possessed another individual's body, the individual's soul would be utterly destroyed. They had specially been deployed there in order to protect Zhang Shi while the latter was cultivating, and yet, such a matter had still occurred right in front of their eyes. Voila! Their initial fluster swiftly turned into rage as they surrounded Zhang Xian's body with sharp killing intent in their eyes. What? You want to make a move against me? Come on then. If you aren't scared of killing this talented master teacher of yours, give it your best shot. The Qing Tian Emperor howled maniacally as he watched the angry faces around him in joy. However, before he could finish his words, his eyes suddenly narrowed in disbelief, as if something inconceivable had just happened. Ah! What is this? And no, this can't be. No. Put on. Amid the crescendoing scream of agony, Zhang Xian's body suddenly collapsed to the ground, convulsing endlessly. Ah! Wu Shi and the others were already prepared to make their move to avenge Zhang Xian when such a sight suddenly appeared before their eyes. They could not help but glance at one another in confusion, not knowing what they should make of the situation before them. Why would the person who was arrogantly boasting before their faces a moment ago suddenly be reduced to such a state? Please. Forgive me. I won't possess your body anymore. Let me leave. Let me leave. A desperate scream echoed as the Qing Tian Emperor's soul frenziedly tried to break out of Zhang Xian's body, only to realize that his pores had been completely sealed. There was no way for him to escape. Please, I'm begging you. Don't kill me. I won't do anything anymore, I promise you. So, please. No. Tzzzzzzzz, the screaming grew louder and louder, as if reflecting the Qing Tian Emperor's deep fear of what he was seeing. A while later, the voice finally began to soften, and it gradually quietened into silence. Who? A flicker of light burst from the altar, and Zhang Xian finally returned to the underground chamber as well. Knowing the immense strength that the Qing Tian Emperor wielded, he immediately rushed back as soon as he could. He had only managed to keep the latter in check but holding the latter's body as hostage, but if the latter were to go on a rampage in Qingyuan City, it could very well spell a calamity. Thus, as soon as he appeared, he immediately scanned the surroundings to find the Qing Tian Emperor, only to see a room full of master teachers instead. Another one. Get him, someone amid the crowd exclaimed. Before Zhang Xian could even process what was going on, a barrage of attacks suddenly fell upon him. Having cultivated the Heaven's Path soul art, Zhang Xian's soul was devoid of the usual yin attribute that soul oracles had. As such, it was not easily discernible to cultivators. Only when a cultivator had their spiritual perception on would they stand a chance in perceiving the presence of Zhang Xian's soul. However, activating one's spiritual perception was extremely exhausting for a cultivator, so they could not afford to have it activated for extended periods of time. It was due to this that Zhang Xian had been able to slip past most cultivators in his soul form easily. But as luck would have it, the Qing Tian Emperor's sudden appearance had alarmed the surrounding master teachers, compelling them to activate their spiritual perception. On top of that, the flash of light from the altar had also caught their attention, allowing them to instantaneously notice Zhang Xian's presence. Pilipala. The seemingly omnipresent barrage of attacks heading toward him caused goosebumps to rise all over Zhang Xian in alarm. What the heck is going on? I was only gone for a short moment. Why are there so many master teachers in the area all of a sudden? And why are they attacking me so furiously at that? Have they gone mad? And where is the Qing Tian Emperor? To make things worse, there was no way Zhang Xian could explain the situation. Otherwise, he would expose his identity as a soul oracle, and that would surely raise quite a huge storm within the master teacher pavilion, bringing him endless trouble in the future. Self-righteous individuals would impeach him for learning the depraved arts of the soul oracles, whereas greedy individuals would possibly seek him out in the hope of obtaining the heritage of the soul oracles from him. It would be foolish to raise another problem just to solve one. Feeling so indignant within that he could have vomited blood, Zhang Xian swiftly compressed his soul together through his heavenly art of dimension unravel, allowing him to avoid the barrage of attacks by a hair's breadth. After which, making use of the brief opening in the crowd's attacks, he immediately dashed toward his body as fast as he could. Another one that's trying to harm Zhang Shi. You're courting death. Kill that bastard. Everyone's eyes reddened in rage upon seeing the enemy's movements. Their previous mistake had allowed the soul before to possess Zhang Shi's body, nearly costing Zhang Shi his life. There was no way they were going to allow themselves to make the same mistake again. Walala. Drawing all their strength, they immediately sent another frenzied barrage of attacks toward Zhang Xian, preventing him from moving a single step further. Zhang Xian would have torn all his hair out at that moment if he could. Instead of dealing with the Qingtian Emperor, why was this group of master teachers so obsessed with stopping him? Ding ding, come over here. Zhang Xian immediately called for the Golden Origin Cauldron through the telepathic connection from their soul contract. Master. Hearing Zhang Xian's voice, the Golden Origin Cauldron immediately leaped up. Quick, bring my body over to the altar. Zhang Xian instructed. Before the endless barrage of attacks in his path, there was no way Zhang Xian could afford to forcefully push through. As such, he could only engage the Golden Origin Cauldron's assistance. Very well. Nodding, the Golden Origin Cauldron immediately leaped up toward Zhang Xian's body with a resounding, "Hu!" Everyone, make way. The Golden Origin Cauldron shouted as it rammed its way forward. It slammed into Zhang Xian's body forcefully, sending it flying straight toward the altar. Pilipila. The crisp sound of bone cracking. Zhang Xian slapped his forehead. Can't you treat my body more carefully? He knew that the Golden Origin Cauldron was not a reliable individual, and this matter only served to further his belief. As stifled as he felt, he knew that this was not the moment to be concerned about this matter. Watching as his body flew in his direction, his soul swiftly dived into his body. As soon as he regained control over his body, he immediately drove his Jinqi to heal his injuries before opening his eyes once more. Standing before the group of master teachers, he asked, the Qingtian Emperor should have come by earlier. Did any of you see him? But before Zhang Xian could finish his words, he suddenly noticed that the atmosphere was not right. Somehow, he felt as if everyone's killing intent was directed toward him. Thus, he narrowed his eyes and asked, what are you all trying to do? Who are you? Even if you possess Principal Zhang's body, do you think that we will allow you to get out of here alive? Wu Shi bellowed furiously. Through their spiritual perception, they had personally witnessed the soul that had just arrived earlier diving into Zhang Xian's body, possessing it. That sight had nearly made them erupt on the spot. It was one thing for them to fail to stop the earlier soul from possessing Zhang Xian's body, but for the second soul to succeed as well. Do you honestly think that our master teacher pavilion is full of pushovers? Do you think that Zhang Shi's body is your playground? Seeing that the crowd was only showing such a response out of worry for him, Zhang Xian shook his head and patiently explained, I am Zhang Xian. I've just awoken from my earlier cultivation. Do you think that we'll believe your words? Wu Shi roared angrily. The rage of the other master teachers did not alleviate at all either. If anything, the hostility in their eyes seemed to have further deepened. You opened your eyes right after the soul entered Zhang Shi's body, and you still dare to claim that you are Zhang Shi. Do you really take us for fools? You don't believe me? Zhang Xian frowned. Wu Shi, the attack you used on me earlier was the 7th move of the 6 harmony swords. Your execution has 8 flaws in total, namely inept swordsmanship, lack of control in your breathing, unrefined execution of strength, incomplete conception in the technique. Knowing that there was no way he could explain his way out of this, Zhang Xian decided to resort to another method to convince them of his identity instead. Flaw identification was a capability that master teachers were the most adept at. Naturally, it was also the best way for him to verify his identity. Hearing how the young man sharply pointed out all the flaws in his technique with ease, Wu Shi could not help but widen his eyes in astonishment. Last but not least, your soul has sustained some degree of damage from the demonic tunes back at the Qiu Wu Palace, and it has not recovered since then. As such, it has affected your execution of techniques to some degree. May I know if what I have said is correct? Wu Shi was stunned for a moment before hurriedly nodding. Why, you're right. Then, am I Zhang Xian? Zhang Xian's eyebrows shot up. Why yes, you are. Wu Shi quickly nodded affirmatively. To be able to point out all his flaws while being aware of the happenings back at the Qiu Wu Palace, who else could the young man before him be if not Zhang Xian? After seeing that he had successfully convinced the crowd of his identity, Zhang Xian heaved a sigh of relief. Then, with a confused frown, he asked, what happened earlier? Why are all of you attacking me? Knowing that there could very well be master teachers on the other side, he had made sure to proceed very carefully. And yet, he still ended up being exposed in an instant and even nearly lost his life as a result of it. Furthermore, even if he was an unidentified intruder in their eyes, their rage seemed to be a little too excessive. Without a doubt, something must have happened before he arrived. It's like this. Wu Shi quickly filled Zhang Xian in on the earlier happenings. You are saying that, a soul dived into my body, and shortly after, he began screaming in agony? Hearing those words, Zhang Xian could not help but shake his head. Was that Qingtian Emperor a fool? His body was filled with heaven's path Xinqi, the very nemesis of soul oracles. And yet, he brazenly dared to possess his body. That was no different from leaping into a pool of toxic for him. He had been feeling a little vexed about the Qingtian Emperor's escape earlier, but who would have thought that the latter would be so dumb as to end his own life? Or maybe, he felt too indignant from seeing me possessing his body, and blinded by rage, he wanted to possess mine to return the favor. Zhang Xian rubbed his glabella. Who would have thought that the emperor of the Qingtian lineage, a leaving aperture realm cultivator, would meet his end in such an unintelligent manner? Judging by Wu Shi's account, the Qingtian emperor should have been reduced to ash from being burned by his heaven's path Xinqi, thus dissipating from the face of the world. Zhang Xian waved his hand and said, Don't worry, I'm fine. I was cultivating a unique cultivation technique earlier, which temporarily deprived me of my awareness of my surroundings. If I'm not mistaken, those two soul oracles should have died from the passive ability of one of the secret arts I cultivate. I see, that's a relief. Hearing that the matter concerned Zhang Xian's secret art, the crowd decided not to ask any further. On the other hand, Wu Shi knew very well what was going on. Zhang Xian was a celestial master teacher, and how could the body of a celestial master teacher be taken away by a soul oracle so easily? Thank you for protecting me earlier. Knowing that the crowd was doing it all for him, Zhang Xian clasped his fist and thanked them. The crowd quickly clasped their fists back and replied, There's no need to stand on ceremony, Zhang Shi. After trading some pleasantries, Zhang Xian took his leave before curiously assessing the internal state of his body. Even if the Qingtian Emperor had been killed by the Heaven's Path Xinqi, there should still have been some traces of the other party within his body. At this moment, a bone-chilling voice suddenly sounded in his mind, as if a specter. Hee, are you looking for me? Chapter 1194, An Eye, Who is it? Zhang Xian suddenly felt all his hair stand on end. For the other party to get into his mind without his noticing it. Who could it be? He quickly turned his attention to the area where the voice came from, and a pitch-black tunnel appeared before him. It seemed to extend on and on, leading into a dark abyss. The bone-chilling voice spoke once more. Come over. Following which, Zhang Xian felt his consciousness falter, and by the time he came to, he was already standing right before the tunnel. To think that he would be completely helpless before the other party's strength. Who in the world are you? Zhang Xian asked with an awful complexion as he swiftly scanned his surroundings. It did not take him long to realize that there was a massive eye right before him. The gaze of the massive eye was deeply unnerving. It seemed to peer right into the depths of one's mind, intensifying whatever dark thoughts one had. No wonder you were able to land my subordinate in such a pitiful state. A cold sneer echoed from the massive eye. A celestial master teacher, huh? It has been many years since Kong Shi, so it's probably about time for another one to appear. You can tell. Zhang Xian narrowed his eyes in alarm as he felt tension clutch his heart. Even a Saint 7 Dan expert like Luo Qingxin was unable to see through his identity, and yet, the fellow before him was able to tell with just a single glance. Just how powerful could the other party be? The eye harumphed coldly. If I could not even tell this much, the years I spent fighting against Kong Shi would have really been wasted. Years spent fighting against Kong Shi. You are vicious? Zhang Xian asked with a deep frown. Previously, the vicious that he was sealed within his Book of Heaven's Path had already told him that the secret art to nabbing souls had been created by him, and it was highly likely that there was another body part of vicious in the marshlands of the northern meadows. But who would have thought that the other party would appear here? In the form of a massive eye at that. You have heard of my name? The eye asked curiously. Well, that is to be expected. I managed to trap Kong Shi within Qin Kai, nearly killing him. Even if you master teachers wish to preserve Kong Shi's honor, there will inevitably be some records of me. Trap Kong Shi. Zhang Xian was stunned. Due to the tremendous damage he had suffered prior to his death, the memory of the vicious that he had sealed within his Book of Heaven's Path was fragmented. As a result, that vicious had remembered very few details concerning Kong Shi. On the other hand, the vicious before him seemed to know much more. While he did not have as deep respect for Kong Shi as compared to the other master teachers, he had always known the latter to be an invincible existence on the master teacher continent. Yet, for vicious to have successfully trapped Kong Shi in Qin Kai and nearly killed the latter, just how powerful could vicious have been at his peak? It seems like you are unaware of that. Well, it does not matter anyway. If I devour a celestial master teacher, I should be able to recover a significant portion of my strength. With that, I will be able to struggle free of my restraints and become a free man once more. A sharp glint emerged in the massive eye as vicious voice sounded with a tinge of excitement in it. For that, you will have no choice but to die. Who? Right after those words were spoken, Zhang Xian suddenly felt an incomparably powerful suction force pulling him in from the depths of the tunnel, forcefully dragging his soul in. Shit! This is the soul-nabbing secret art. Zhang Xian's face immediately turned incredibly awful. He had nearly succumbed to the soul-nabbing secret art when it was executed by the Qingtian Emperor, and now that it was being executed by Vicious himself, the creator of the technique, how could he possibly stand a chance? Watching as his soul was being dragged toward the tunnel, goosebumps rose all over Zhang Xian's arms. As expected of the individual who had once fought toe-to-toe with Kong Shi. Even if Vicious retained no more than a small fragment of the strength he possessed earlier, it was still not something that he could withstand. There was simply too huge a difference between them. At this rate, it's just a matter of time before I get swallowed whole. Even though he had no idea what was at the end of the tunnel, his instincts told him that he would be doomed if he was pulled over to the other side. Thus, clenching his jaws, he drove his soul energy to the maximum and firmly persevered on. At the same time, he discreetly established a telepathic connection with the Book of Heaven's Path and asked Vicious about the current situation. If I'm not mistaken, that should be my head and my eye, Vicious quickly replied. Do you have any idea how I can deal with this? Zhang Xian asked anxiously. As powerful as the soul-nabbing secret art is, its effectiveness is limited across vast distances. In such circumstances, a medium may be required. For example, the Qingtian Emperor only managed to phase you through amplifying the prowess of the secret art through the altar. Well, back when I was at my peak, I was able to kill any Saint Tu Dan cultivator easily as long as they were within 1,000,000 li one from me, but given the current state that I am in, there's a high chance that the other party is using some kind of medium as well. As long as you destroy the medium, the soul-nabbing secret art should be undone. Vicious quickly explained. Back when he was at his peak, as long as he had a droplet of the other party's blood to trace the other party down, he would have been able to easily kill a Saint Tu Dan expert even from 1,000,000 li away. However, with his body parts scattered around the continent, he was currently nothing more than a shadow of his former self. Even if the other Vicious had recovered to a greater degree than him, it still should not have been possible for the other party to cast the soul-nabbing secret art over a great distance. The only possibility was that the other Vicious, just like the previous Qingtian Emperor, was using something nearby as a medium for his technique. A medium? Wait a moment. Hearing those words, a thought streaked across Zhang Xian's mind. The Qingtian Emperor's soul. Considering that it was just a moment ago that the Qingtian Emperor's soul had entered his body before the other Vicious' abrupt emergence, it was very likely that the medium was the Qingtian Emperor's soul. It seems like that fellow still has a breath left in him. Humph, let me see where you are hiding. With a direction in mind, Zhang Xian heaved a sigh of relief. While pushing his soul energy to his limit to fend off the suction force, he extended his spiritual perception throughout his entire body to find the hiding Qingtian Emperor. Found you. It took just a moment for Zhang Xian to notice a fragmented soul hiding in a corner of his mind. When uncontrolled, the heaven's path Xinqi could circulate through his entire body, but it could not reach his mind. It seemed like the sharp-witted Qingtian Emperor had swiftly noticed this and dived for his mind, thus surviving the ordeal. Humph. Zhang Xian swiftly drew his heaven's path Xinqi toward his mind to destroy the remnants of the Qingtian Emperor's soul. Ah! Amidst the Qingtian Emperor's cry of agony, Zhang Xian felt the suction force growing weaker and weaker. At the same time, the massive eye also began to fade from existence along with the tunnel. You noticed it? Well, it matters not. You might have survived this time around, but I'll eventually get you. With a menacing bellow, the massive eye vanished with a resounding "hoo." Zhang Xian's surroundings abruptly morphed, and in the next moment, he found that he was still standing in the underground chamber, as if nothing had happened at all. However, the cold sweat that he was drenched in reminded him of how close he had come to death. In just an instant, the other Vicious had successfully put him in a trance and nearly devoured him whole. That was a close one. Even though he was finally out of danger, Zhang Xian found that his heart just would not calm down. It was too scary. Had he not reacted swiftly, his soul could have been dragged over to the other side. He might have managed to outwit the Qingtian Emperor, but it would not have been easy for him to do the same to Vicious. Master, pardon me for not making a move then. I could not do anything in that situation, or else I would have exposed my existence. Once that fellow knows of my presence, he'll surely pursue you with even more extreme methods, and that would have just placed you in greater danger. Vicious explained from the Book of Heaven's Path. I understand. Zhang Xian nodded. The other party was right. While the Book of Heaven's Path had limited his vicious activity, the divine aura that shrouded it had concealed his presence as well, preventing the other Vicious from perceiving his existence. However, if his Vicious were to make a move, the other Vicious would surely sense his existence. Every single independent Vicious was trying to seek and devour the other Vicious so as to regain his strength. While their side was trying to hunt down the other Vicious, there was no doubt that the other Vicious had the same intentions in mind as well. They were currently still unprepared to deal with the other Vicious, so it would be unwise for them to expose themselves. Furthermore, once the other Vicious learned of the existence of his Vicious, the other Vicious would surely raise his guard, making their chances of overwhelming him very slim. At the very least, with his Vicious hidden in the shadows, he would have another effective card to play against the other Vicious. This would put them in a more advantageous position. How strong is the other party? Are you a match for him? Zhang Xian asked. Vicious hesitated for a moment before replying. I can't clearly gauge his current strength, but from the looks of it, he's at the leaving aperture realm at the very minimum. I am no match for him in my current state. However, if I could devour the Qingtian Emperor's soul, I should be able to reach leaving aperture realm as well. Devour the Qingtian Emperor's soul. Zhang Xian contemplated for a moment before nodding in approval. Even though the Qingtian Emperor was an otherworldly demon, he had inherited the heritage of the soul oracles, and his cultivation had even reached the true leaving aperture realm. If Vicious were to consume the Qingtian Emperor's soul, it would surely benefit him greatly. Thank you. Vicious replied in gratitude. Zhang Xian paused for a moment before adding, wait a moment first, I wish to interrogate him first. I'll pass him over to you once I'm done. Trapped by the heaven's path Xinqi and grinded down from the earlier clash, the Qingtian Emperor no longer posed any threat to him. There were still some doubts in his mind that he wanted to clarify with the Qingtian Emperor. Principal Zhang. While it seemed to have been a lengthy encounter, in truth, only 10 seconds had passed since the appearance of the black tunnel. Raising his head, he saw Wu Shi looking at him with a worried look. I'm fine. Wu Shi, I need you to follow me somewhere. Oh right, get your men to move the altar to the Master Teacher Pavilion and hand it over to the envoy from the headquarters once he arrives. That would serve as evidence of the activities of the otherworldly demonic tribe here, Zhang Xian said. Noted. Wu Shi quickly issued some instructions before following Zhang Xian out of the underground chamber. Returning to Chenji's residence, Zhang Xian activated his Eye of Insight and began scanning the area once more. It did not take long before he identified a direction and swiftly began heading in it. Chenji's residence was located in the suburbs of Qingyuan City. As such, it did not take long for Zhang Xian and Wu Shi to travel beyond the city walls and into the depths of the mountain forest. Soon, a tattered, wooden hut appeared before their eyes. Finally arriving at the destination, Zhang Xian remarked in astonishment, here it is. I never thought that the two would be so far away from one another. He had thought that the two altars should be in proximity with one another, but who would have thought that there would be a distance of several dozen kilometers between the two? To be able to drag his soul across such distance, Vicious' secret art was truly fearsome. Entering the wooden hut, Zhang Xian swiftly retrieved the storage ring that he had hidden earlier. This. On the other hand, a look of disbelief surfaced on Wu Shi's face when he noticed that there was an identical altar in the wooden hut as well. Take a look at who this is. Zhang Xian drove his heaven's path Xinqi to destroy the soul imprint of the storage ring before flicking his wrist. A corpse materialized before him. Isn't this Vice Pavilion Master Tian? Didn't he explode earlier? Wu Shi was taken aback. Tian Qing had exploded right before his eyes, and he had sent the other party's body back to the Master Teacher Pavilion for investigation. How could there be another corpse here? Furthermore, this body was completely intact, and it commanded an even stronger aura than Vice Pavilion Master Tian's. This is his disguise, Zhang Xian said as he flicked his hand over the Qingtian Emperor's body. Voila! The corpse suddenly grew much bulkier, and its height abruptly increased to more than 2 meters. While there was no significant difference in its facial features, a fearsome killing intent abruptly burst forth from him. He's an otherworldly demon. Wu Shi's eyes narrowed in shock. That's right. Zhang Xian nodded. Not only is he an otherworldly demon, he's the Qingtian Emperor. The Emperor of the Qingtian lineage? Wu Shi could not believe what he was hearing. How could Vice Pavilion Master Tian have been an emperor of the Qingtian lineage? If that was true, how could he have failed to notice it despite having known the other party for several centuries? It's like this. Zhang Xian swiftly filled Wu Shi in on the story. This. Wu Shi's lips quivered in horror. To think that the Qing Tian Emperor would have successfully incarnated his soul and even risen to the position of the vice-head of the Qingyuan Empire Master-Teacher Pavilion without their notice. This was truly a horrifying oversight on their part. If this was the case for Qing Tian, how many other master-teachers in their Master-Teacher Pavilion were otherworldly demons in disguise? Chapter 1195, Celestial Amulet of Legacy. You should understand why I asked you to come here with me alone. This matter must not leak out at any cost, or else it could stir a panic among the populace. Seeing that Wu Shi had understood the severity of the issue, Zhang Xian instructed, nevertheless, it's still of paramount importance that we uncover the traitors of mankind, or else they could bring catastrophe upon us. Thus, you must conduct the investigation privately and destroy whatever lingering influence the Qing Tian Emperor has in the Qingyuan Empire Master-Teacher Pavilion once and for all. I understand. Wu Shi nodded. He knew that Zhang Xian was right. If they could not purge the Qingyuan Empire Master-Teacher Pavilion of its spies, it would only be a matter of time before the spies did them in. I'll leave this corpse to you. When the envoy from the headquarters arrives, use it as evidence and report the matter to him, Zhang Xian said. It was true that the body of the Qing Tian Emperor wielded incredible strength, but it was not as agile and nimble as being in his own body. As such, he did not think that there was a need for him to retain the Qing Tian Emperor's body for his own use. More importantly, a vice-pavilion master was even involved in the matter. In view of that, it would not be convenient for him to use the body in public. As such, it was best to leave the matter to Wu Shi. Thank you. Wu Shi clasped his fist in gratitude before stowing the corpse into his storage ring. To be honest, if not for the young man before him, he never would have believed that the meritorious vice-pavilion Master Tian was the emperor of the Qing Tian lineage. All right, you should return back to the Master-Teacher Pavilion to deal with the matter. I also want to take a rest, Zhang Xian said. Hearing those words, Wu Shi bade his farewell before leaving. After Wu Shi left, Zhang Xian swiftly stowed the altar before him into his storage ring. Following which, he took out the Qing Tian Emperor's storage ring and extended his consciousness into it. As the emperor of the Qing Tian lineage, the Qing Tian Emperor would have plenty of treasures in his possession. Who? A painting materialized in Zhang Xian's hands. It was the grade 8 painting that he had appraised a while back. Placing the painting aside, he continued looking on. A moment later, he delightfully took out a few jade boxes from the storage ring. Slowly opening them, a concentrated surge of spiritual energy suddenly gushed into Zhang Xian's face, leaving him feeling refreshed. Concentrated high-tier spirit stones. 6 jade boxes with 5 concentrated high-tier spirit stones each. That means there's a total of 30 of them here. Zhang Xian thought in agitation. He had only managed to obtain 18 concentrated high-tier spirit stones from the emperor of the Qingyuan Empire, and yet, who could have thought that the Qing Tian Emperor would actually have 30 of them in his possession? The Qing Tian lineage sure was wealthy. With this 30, I should be able to advance to the embryonic soul realm easily. Zhang Xian heaved a sigh of relief. Strength was the foundation he had to build up before he could pursue anything. Only with sufficient strength would he be able to vie for the slot to the Sanctum of Sages, rise through the ranks, and gain the ability to negotiate on equal terms with the Zhang clan and the Luo clan. Time was truly not on his side. He only had until the 3rd month of next year. He did not want to see his lover getting married to a so-called talent of the Zhang clan whom she had not even met before. After obtaining the concentrated high-tier spirit stones, Zhang Xian decided to leap straight into the myriad anthive nest. It was quieter within the nest, and he did not have to worry about being interrupted by anyone in there. Crossing his legs, he placed the 30 concentrated high-tier spirit stones in front of him before muttering, "Time to start." Concentrating his focus on his soul, he moved his soul toward his origin core once more, and this time, he managed to successfully infuse his soul into the origin core without any problems. At the same time, he swiftly devoured the spiritual energy contained within the concentrated high-tier spirit stones and channeled it through his meridians toward his origin core. In order to reach the embryonic soul realm, he would have to fuse his soul and origin core together and morph it into the shape of an embryo. He had already compiled the cultivation technique required for the morphing process, and all that he had been lacking was spirit stones. Driven with immense power, the massive congregation of spiritual energy crashed toward the origin core with astounding momentum. Boom! As the rate at which Zhang Xian absorbed spiritual energy increased, a vortex of spiritual energy quickly formed around him. Under the massive impact from the crashing spiritual energy, a gap finally opened in his origin core. A small hand slowly crept through the small gap in his origin core. Knowing that this was the crucial period, Zhang Xian's eyebrows shot up as he channeled all the spiritual energy he had absorbed toward his origin core at maximum speed. Break! Sila! The origin core finally broke open, and a small infant slowly climbed out from it. This is an embryonic soul. Seeing his embryonic soul, Zhang Xian's lips could not help but twitch uncontrollably. It was true that his embryonic soul did resemble a baby, similar to that of other cultivators, but his embryonic soul was 10 meters tall. Imagine a 10-meter tall baby. This was truly frightening. An ominous feeling suddenly arose in Zhang Xian's heart. Just how much spiritual energy will I require to develop it into a primordial spirit? If his embryonic soul was this much bigger than that of the other cultivators, did it not mean that the spiritual energy he would require to achieve a breakthrough would surely be much greater others? Other cultivators might only require a single concentrated high-tier spirit stone to cultivate through the entire embryonic soul realm or even achieve a breakthrough to the primordial spirit realm. But with the size of his embryonic soul, he really could not begin to imagine how many concentrated high-tier spirit stones he would require. Sighing deeply, Zhang Xian continued absorbing the spiritual energy within the concentrated high-tier spirit stones to raise his cultivation. Some time later, when the final concentrated high-tier spirit stone broke, Zhang Xian slowly opened his eyes and shook his head helplessly. Embryonic Soul Realm Intermediate Stage. He had thought that 30 concentrated high-tier spirit stone should suffice for him to reach embryonic soul realm pinnacle, but who would have thought that they were completely depleted by the time he reached embryonic soul realm intermediate stage? Zhang Xian rubbed his glabella in frustration. At this rate, I'll require at least 50 more concentrated high-tier spirit stone before I can reach embryonic soul realm pinnacle. Even finding a single concentrated high-tier spirit stone felt like finding a needle in a haystack. Where in the world was he supposed to find the 50 concentrated high-tier spirit stone required for him to reach embryonic soul realm pinnacle? In the first place, it was doubtful that he could find so many concentrated high-tier spirit stones even if he flipped Qingyuan City upside down. Sighing deeply once more, Zhang Xian consoled himself. At the very least, despite the fearsome rate of depletion of spirit stones, my fighting prowess did rise proportionately to the consumption. While it did pain his heart to see 30 concentrated high-tier spirit stones vanishing so swiftly, admittedly, he was still rather satisfied with the rise in his fighting prowess. Previously, he would have struggled to be a match for Pavilion Master Go, relying heavily on his superior combat skills and adept use of formations to achieve victory. However, with his newfound strength, he would be able to match even the leaving aperture realm Qingtian Emperor. In other words, despite possessing only a cultivation of embryonic soul realm intermediate stage, he was already on par with a leaving aperture realm primary stage cultivator. With such strength, it could be said that he had finally reached the peak of the Qingyuan Empire. When he first arrived at Qingyuan City, he was only a Saint 1 Dan pinnacle rookie, only able to match Saint 3 Dan cultivators. Even primordial spirit realm cultivators would have been able to do him in easily. But now, even Hall Master Xing was not a match for him. Ah, time sure flies. Just thinking of it evoked some reminiscence within him. This should be the 8th day since I arrived in Qingyuan City, Zhang Xian remarked internally as a slight tinge of redness slowly crept across his face. 8 whole days, and yet, he had only advanced less than 2 realms. Zhang Xian could not help but feel deeply ashamed of himself. It seemed like he really needed to work harder from now on. Forget it. I should check on that fellow now. Tossing aside his stifled feelings, Zhang Xian tapped the area before him, and a soul appeared before his eyes. At this moment, the Qingtian Emperor had already been ground down by the heaven's path Xinqi, retaining only half of his original strength. Severely wounded, he seemed to be spiritless and lethargic, reminiscent of a person on his deathbed. Nevertheless, upon catching sight of Zhang Xian, flames of hostility began burning in his eyes. You son of a bitch, I'll kill you. Roaring furiously, the Qingtian Emperor charged forward to tear the young man before him apart. However, before he could even deal any damage, a single finger abruptly appeared before his eyes. Pada! The next moment, the Qingtian Emperor found himself firmly pressed down on the floor, unable to move at all no matter how hard he struggled. Why you? How can you be so strong? The Qingtian Emperor narrowed his eyes in disbelief. It was just a while ago that the other party had been no match for him at all. How could the other party have become so much stronger in the blink of an eye? To be able to render him powerless with a single finger, just what kind of cultivation realm had he reached? Since he could not be bothered to waste his breath with the other party, Zhang Xian got straight to business. As an otherworldly demon, how did you manage to cross over to the Master-Teacher continent? How did you become acquainted with Vicious and inherit the heritage of the Soul Oracles? How many spies of yours are there in the Master-Teacher Pavilion? Speak. I'll just say this once, I have plenty of time to play with you. Confess, and I'll consider giving you a painless death. Otherwise, I'll become your worst nightmare. The reason he did not let Vicious swallow the Qingtian Emperor directly was because he wanted to find out these things from the other party's mouth. Ha ha ha. Raising his head proudly, the Qingtian Emperor obstinately declared, Do you think that I'll submit to human scum like you? Dream on. I am the Emperor of the Qingtian lineage, death brings no fear to me. However, before he could finish his words, a kick suddenly fell on his head, smashing it into the ground. Following which, he heard the voice of the young man once more. Vicious, as long as I retain his soul energy for your consumption, it won't matter if I kill his consciousness, right? Very well, I won't stand on ceremony then. Right after saying those words, the other party's palm rose up, and a surge of burning heaven's path Xinqi gathered in his grasp. The palm gradually lowered toward the Qingtian Emperor, leaving him with a burning sensation that was intensifying by the moment. The Qingtian Emperor tried to struggle free but to no avail. When the palm finally fell on his soul, a wretched scream escaped from his lips. You! Ah! He had been planning to grit his teeth and bear the torture until the very end, but in the very next moment, he saw the other party flicking his finger and pulling a thin thread from his soul. The eyes of the Qingtian Emperor immediately widened in horror. Soul search. As a soul oracle, there was no way he would be unaware of the technique that Zhang Xian was executing. Known to be one of the most violent techniques of the soul oracles, it would put the victim through excruciating pain and deal irreparable damage. Even if his soul did not dissipate at the end of the process, the chances were that he would have become mentally retarded. For a person as proud and lofty as the Qingtian Emperor, the thought of living life mentally retarded was unacceptable to him, and it filled him with tremendous fear. I'll speak, the Qingtian Emperor immediately exclaimed. I already gave you a chance earlier. It's too late now. Unwilling to waste his breath on the other party, Zhang Xian forcefully tugged on the string and pulled it out. Toward his enemies, he was not so patient and kind as to offer them second chances. It was only out of consideration of Vicious needs that he had spared the Qingtian Emperor for so long. However, since Vicious did not require the latter's mind to be intact, there was no need for him to hesitate any longer. At this point, he could tell that the other party's mental fortitude had already fallen, so he would be able to acquire whatever he needed through the soul search. Tzzzzzzzz. After drawing out the other party's memory, Zhang Xian began studying it carefully. 2 hours later, Zhang Xian exhaled deeply before rubbing his glabella. Through his soul search, he had already gained a thorough understanding of the ins and outs of the incident. Around 2,000 years ago, this emperor of the Qing Tian lineage had unwittingly established a connection to vicious consciousness in the midst of a ritual. Making use of that opportunity, Vicious had used a secret art that tapped into the energy from the tributes to teleport the Qing Tian emperor over and imparted the cultivation techniques of the soul oracles to him. In order to infiltrate the higher ranks of the master-teacher pavilion, he had bid his time while kidnapping young infants who showed some talent for cultivation, intending to reincarnate his will within them. This secret art was extremely complicated, and it would deal severe damage to one's soul as well. Even tapping into Vicious' deep comprehension of souls, he could only afford to use the technique once every 10 years. It had taken 120 attempts before he managed to succeed with Tian Qing. As for why the Qing Tian emperor would go through so much trouble to infiltrate the higher ranks of the master-teacher pavilion personally, the reason was detailed in his memory as well. It's for Kong Shi's celestial amulet of legacy. Zhang Xian muttered with a grim expression. Chapter 1196, The friendly spar between the combat master halls begins. Before Kong Shi disappeared, he left behind 6 celestial amulets of legacy. One was known to be with the master-teacher pavilion, whereas the other 5 had disappeared from the face of the world. Legend had it that the gathering of all 6 celestial amulets of legacy would herald the opening of the Temple of Confucius, and those who entered it would be able to obtain his ultimate treasure, the Great Codex of Spring and Autumn. It was for this reason that many people had been seeking the celestial amulets of legacy over the past several dozen millenniums, but it was a pity that they were nowhere to be found. Or perhaps, they might have already been found, just that no one dared proclaim their ownership of them. After all, this was linked to Kong Shi's ultimate treasure. Even master teachers would lose their rationality before it. It was through the mouth of Vicious that the Qing Tian emperor had learned of the news concerning the celestial amulets of legacy, and in a bid to lay his hands on it, he had set up elaborate plans. Through his soul search, Zhang Xian realized that there was a reason that the Qing Tian emperor was so determined to find the Qiu Wu palace. Based on the Qing Tian emperor's memories, there should be a key to finding a celestial amulet of legacy within the Qiu Wu palace, but it doesn't seem like anything is there at all. Rather, he had made the decision to seek out the Qiu Wu palace only after tracing down the clues he had. On top of learning that there was a key to the celestial amulet of legacy, he had also discovered that there was a sliver of Kong Shi's will that lingered in there as well. If things had gone well, he might even have been able to uncover the precise location of the Temple of Confucius while obtaining the celestial amulet of legacy. The Temple of Confucius was a heritage that Kong Shi had left behind for the later generations. It was hidden within the void, and there was no one in the world who knew where it was located. It seems like the intelligence that the Qing Tian emperor has obtained is untrue. Zhang Xian shook his head. He had looked through the Qiu Wu palace twice, but there was nothing reminiscent of a key in there. In fact, there was not a single thing in there that pointed to the celestial amulets of legacy at all. Well, how could the elusive celestial amulets of legacy be obtained so easily? Other than the Qiu Wu palace, the Qing Tian emperor had also learned that a painter had chanced upon a celestial amulet of legacy, and he had detailed it with a painting of Kong Shi's silhouette. After hearing the rumors, the Qing Tian emperor had swiftly captured the painter to interrogate him, but to no avail. 3 years ago, he had unintentionally found the heritage that the painter had left behind, and within the heritage was a certain grade 8 painting. He had suspected that the painting might have been the one mentioned in those rumors, and as luck would have it, he discovered a seal on it. That had further supported his deduction. Unfortunately, he had been unable to find a way to decipher the seal. After many failures, he had eventually decided to turn to the head of the Qingyuan Empire Appraiser Hall, Guild Leader Mu, for help. And the rest was as how Zhang Xian remembered it. Zhang Xian frowned. Does that mean that the place that I saw in the painting was the location where the celestial amulet of legacy is located? While the clue concerning the Qiao Wu Palace had led to a dead end, it was a fact that he had seen Kong Shi's silhouette within the Grade 8 painting, so there should have been no mistake about it. Zhang Xian made up his mind. I really must investigate where the mountain range is after I return and find it. On top of uncovering that, Zhang Xian also managed to obtain a list of traders from the Master Teacher Pavilion as well. There were more 100 of them, and they were scattered throughout the Qingyuan Empire. The otherworldly demonic tribe was blessed with long lifespans, far exceeding the 1,000 years that a human saint realm cultivator would have. Thus, it had not been too difficult for them to plant a few spies here and there. Not all master teachers were strong-willed enough to withstand the sweet whisperings of the otherworldly demonic tribe, so some of them had eventually succumbed and become their puppets. Zhang Xian swiftly jotted down a copy of their names before sending them over to Wu Shi through his communication jade token. After that was done, he heaved a long sigh of relief. With this, they would be able to root out the Qingtian Emperor's influence in the Qingyuan Empire once and for all. Vicious, I'll leave him to you. After uncovering all that he wanted to know, Zhang Xian waved his hand and passed the soul of the Qingtian Emperor over to Vicious. In the 2,000 years that the Qingtian Emperor had spent living among the humans, he had stained his hands with the blood of countless master teachers. To be honest, Zhang Xian thought that the other party was getting off too lightly. Thank you, Master. Vicious replied excitedly. Getting to his feet, Zhang Xian stretched his back lazily as he began pondering over a new plan to obtain more concentrated high-tier spirit stone. However, in that moment, he suddenly recalled a certain matter, and his lips began twitching wildly. I forgot that I promised Hall Master Xing to train his combat masters. Earlier, he said that the combat masters from the other 3 conferred Empire Combat Master Halls would be arriving in 3 days. He had headed right for the Master Teacher Pavilion for his promotion to 7-star Master Teacher right after preparing the training regimes for the combat masters. After getting caught up in an entire string of matters, 4 days had passed in a flash. In other words, the combat masters from the other 3 conferred Empire Combat Master Halls should have arrived by now, and the friendly spar might have already begun. I should rush back to take a look. Swiftly leaving the myriad anthive nest, Zhang Xian realized that the sun was hanging high in the sky. It was already the noon of the 4th day. Back then, Hall Master Xing had told him that if he trained the combat masters well and led them to victory in the friendly spar, he would split half of the reward from the Combat Master Hall headquarters with him. This was a precious source of concentrated high-tier spirit stones for him. No matter what, he needed to witness the exchange with his own eyes. At this point, he could only pray that those fellows had obediently followed his training regime. Otherwise, if they lost, that would be 50 concentrated high-tier spirit stones. Just the thought of it was sufficient to make his heart bleed in pain. Anxious, he rushed all the way toward the Combat Master Hall. In the training hall of the Combat Master Hall, countless combat masters were gathered in the area, their eyes fixated on the dueling platforms in the middle. At the very forefront of the spectator stand, ahead of the crowd gathered in the area, sat 4 elders. One of them was Hall Master Xing. Hall Master Xing, I heard rumors that your combat masters have joined that, what is it called again? Xianxian faction. According to what I have heard, it seems to be an organization from a Tier 1 empire, right? Before the friendly spar had even begun, the other 3 elders had already turned sharp gazes toward Hall Master Xing as they questioned him with deep frowns on their faces. The Combat Master Hall represented the highest fighting prowess in the Master Teacher continent, and yet, the combat masters of the Qingyuan Empire Combat Master Hall had actually lowered themselves to joining a Master Teacher organization of a Tier 1 empire. This was truly inconceivable. It was true that the Qingyuan Empire Combat Master Hall was the weakest of them all, but surely they did not have to lower themselves to such an extent. To band themselves together with a group of ordinary master teachers, they were practically tossing aside the dignity of the combat masters. Yes, that's right, Hall Master Xing replied. The 10,000 men of the Xianxian faction were currently living in the Combat Master Hall. There was no way he could possibly conceal the matter from them at this point. An elder with a goatee harumphed coldly as he glared at Hall Master Xing sharply. I don't want to interfere in the affairs of your Combat Master Hall either, but are you serious? To actually have your combat masters join a Tier 1 Empire organization, just what is going through your mind? Does the dignity and honor of the Combat Master Hall mean nothing to you? That was the head of the Chongyuan Empire Combat Master Hall, Xiao Yi. It's not what you all think it is. I concede that the Xianxian faction is a student faction from a Tier 1 empire, but their comprehension of combat is superior even to us combat masters. As Kong Shi once said, learn from the capable, regardless of their standing. Hall Master Xing explained, but he was interjected halfway through his words. Another elder harumphed. Enough. We are not interested in hearing whatever explanation you have. I hope that you can at least get a single slot for the Sword Lagoon of the Qiancheng Empire so that you don't embarrass yourselves any further. The head of the Haohai Empire Combat Master Hall, Lu Qinshan. The third elder shook his head. Allow me to give you a word of advice. The Qingyuan Empire Combat Master Hall might be the weakest of the conferred empires now, but don't test the patience of the headquarters. They could very well call for your closure. When that happens, I don't know how you intend to face your predecessors. The head of the Qianyun Empire Combat Master Hall, Wei Qianshu. Of the 8 great conferred empires, the weakest 4 were namely Chongyuan, Qianyun, Haohai, and Qingyuan. Qingyuan used to be ranked 3rd, but the assault from the otherworldly demonic tribe 20 years ago had been a crushing blow to it, and it had not been able to recover from the devastating damage since then. As such, be it their national power, regional master-teacher pavilion, or combat master hall, unfortunately, they could only be placed in very last place. Seeing that the 3 hall masters were clearly looking down on him, Hall Master Xing frowned in displeasure. Thank you for your kind advice, but even if our Qingyuan Empire Combat Master Hall has not recovered from the damage we suffered 20 years ago, we are still making a swift recovery. You won't be let down in the friendly spar later on. Halfway through his words, cheers suddenly erupted behind him. The candidates that would be participating in the friendly spar were making their way into the training hall. Ha, indeed. I am not let down at all. Zhao Yi burst into laughter upon seeing the candidates from Qingyuan. Hall Master Xing, has your Combat Master Hall run short of funds? So, this is what the elites of your Combat Master Hall look like, huh? Wei Qianshu frowned in disapproval. Run short of funds? Uncomprehending of what they were saying, Hall Master Xing turned his gaze over to his combat masters, and his eyes nearly bulged out of their sockets. He saw that Shi Hao was still dressed in the clothes he had worn while cleaning the toilet bowls, and he was still equipped with a feather duster in hand. Jiao Tan was still holding onto his fly swatter, Shao Qin was carrying a bird cage in his hand, Dong Rui had large bumps all over his head. It was as if they were pitiful beggars picked off the street. Caught off guard by the happenings, Hall Master Xing swiftly turned his head toward Division Head Liao. Division Head Liao, what is going on? Hall Master Xing, Principal Zhang's training regime was simply too much for them to finish within 3 days. They all carried out their training until the very last moment before rushing over in a hurry, Division Head Liao quickly explained. Zhang Xian's training regime was truly harsh, it was clearly impossible to finish it within 3 days. Division Head Liao could not tell whether the candidates were possessed or brainwashed, but despite the impossible mission that they had been tasked with, the candidates had carried out their training diligently without a single word of complaint. It was only when the friendly spar was about to begin that they had reluctantly halted their training to rush over. Hearing that explanation, a bitter look surfaced on Hall Master Xing's face. Had he known that this would happen, he never would have entrusted the training of the candidates to Zhang Xian. With this, their Qingyuan Empire Combat Master Hall would surely become the laughingstock of the other conferred Empire Combat Master Hall for many years to come. Cleaning the toilet bowl, swatting flies, capturing birds, leaping off trees. Just what was Zhang Xian up to? Was he really trustworthy? While Hall Master Xing was still staring at the situation before him with a desolate look in his eyes, a shout suddenly sounded from the dueling platform. I am Ling Xian from the Chongyuan Empire Combat Master Hall. My cultivation is at St. Tu Dan Intermediate Stage. Are there any friends from the Qingyuan Empire Combat Master Hall who would like to spar with me? A combat master had already leaped onto one of the dueling platforms, and he was staring at Qingyuan's candidates intently. Hall Master Xing clenched his fists tightly. To challenge us right from the start, they are intending to suppress our morale. There was a proper order to how the friendly spar should have been conducted, and yet, that combat master Ling Xian had leaped up onto the dueling platform to challenge Qingyuan's candidates. That was clearly an intentional act to destroy their confidence right from the start. Furthermore, as the host of the friendly spar, it would make them appear weak if they turned down the challenge. I'll face you. Jiao Tan leaped onto the dueling platform. Jiao Tan was a genius from the martial arts division, and his cultivation had long reached St. Tu Dan Intermediate Stage. He was the candidate that the Qingyuan Empire Combat Master Hall had chosen for the friendly spar for this cultivation stage. You? Seeing the other party's work clothes and the fly swatter in his hands, Ling Xian could not help but burst into laughter. Very well then, make your move. Let me see the formidable strength of the Qingyuan Empire Combat Masters. Voila! Right after saying those words, he channeled his Jinqi toward his palm, and a deafening rumble reminiscent of thunder echoed from his hands. That is Chongyuan Empire's famous bolt lightning palm. It's said that the palm art is as swift as a bolt of lightning, making it nigh impossible for cultivators of the same tier to withstand it. According to what I know, it's extremely difficult to cultivate as well. Countless geniuses have found themselves completely clueless before it. However, judging from the resounding thunder from Ling Xian's palm, most likely, he has already reached major accomplishment in the battle technique. Major accomplishment? That should be consummation. Ling Xian is said to be the most talented individual of Chongyuan Empire Combat Master Hall's martial arts division, and despite having yet to reach his 30s, he has already broken several records and successfully cultivated 34 battle techniques to date. He's so formidable. Such discussions could be heard throughout the crowd. However, seemingly oblivious to the words of the crowd, Jiao Tan calmly walked up to Ling Xian with the same fly swatter in his hand. Chapter 1197, Pa Pa Pa. That bamboo fly swatter is delicate and powerless, and yet, he intends to use it to deal with Ling Xian's bolt lightning palm? Is there something wrong with that fellow's head? Jiao Tan is the #1 genius of the martial arts division, and his comprehension of battle techniques has reached an incredible height as well. In normal circumstances, even if he is no match for Ling Xian, he would at least be able to put up a spectacular fight. But to walk up with a fly swatter in hand, is he out of his mind? Seeing how Jiao Tan was acting, everyone was dumbfounded. Hall Master Xing and Division Head Liao felt so crazed that they wanted to tear out all their hair on the spot. They had placed so much hope in Jiao Tan, and yet, after a few days of undergoing Zhang Xian's training regime, he was suddenly off his rockers. It would have been tolerable if Jiao Tan had chosen to wield an ordinary sword, a chair, or even a brick. A fly swatter was flexible and fragile, making it unsuitable to exert strength through it. To face Ling Xian with such a weapon was practically committing suicide. Thinking that Jiao Tan was making light of him, Ling Xian's face reddened in fury. Are you sure you want to face me with that? Even though it was just a friendly spar, it was still a formal event. It should have been a solemn and dignified occasion, and yet, the other party was actually insulting him by facing him with a fly swatter. That was blatant humiliation toward him. Jiao Tan nodded earnestly. If you think that you are disadvantaged, you can wield a weapon if you want. There's no need to hold back. You. Jiao Tan's words caused a mini explosion in Ling Xian's mind, and he clenched his jaws so tightly together that his teeth nearly chipped. Waving his hands furiously, he harumphed. "There's no need for that. I'll use my palms to teach you a lesson and make your Qingyuan Empire Combat Master Hall understand the gap between us. No matter how hard you work, you will never be able to catch up to us." Voila! Right after saying those words, with a thunderous roar, his palm shot forth with a speed as swift as a streak of lightning. In the blink of an eye, his lightning-like aura permeated the entire dueling platform. It felt as if the slightest wrong move would bring a crushing blow, seemingly forcing Jiao Tan into a cornered situation. "I'll look forward to it then," Jiao Tan replied leisurely before raising the fly swatter in his hand. With a swift motion, he struck the lightning before his eyes. "You're seeking death." Seeing that the other party obstinately wanted to face him with a fly swatter, Ling Xian gritted his teeth furiously as his palm flew toward Jiao Tan. He was going to use his full strength to inflict a crushing defeat upon the other party so as to let the other party understand what a true expert was. Hall Master Zhao Yi shook his head and said, "There's no need to watch any further. The victor has already been decided." Indeed. An aura suffused with lightning, a palm overflowing with strength. Even though Ling Xian is only a Saint 2 Dan cultivator, his might is more than sufficient to overwhelm any Saint 3 Dan cultivator. Even a half-saint weapon could be crushed into pieces before his bolt lightning palm. There is no way that fellow will be able to match Ling Xian with just a bamboo fly swatter. Hall Master Lu Qinshan sighed. From the looks of it, it seems like the Qingyuan Empire Combat Master Hall won't be able to obtain a single slot. Hall Master Wei Qianshu sneered coldly. However, before he could finish his words, a "pa" suddenly echoed resoundingly throughout the training hall. Taken aback, the three hall masters quickly turned their gazes back to the dueling platform, only to see that before Ling Xian's bolt lightning palm could reach Jiao Tan, a fly swatter had struck his face squarely, leaving a dense congregation of red lines in its wake. "Ah, I'll kill you." Ling Xian had clearly not expected the other party's fly swatter to move so swiftly as to slap him right before everyone else. Seething with rage, he dashed forward and thrust another palm forward. "Pa!" But again, before his palm could connect, another crisp echo sounded throughout the entire training hall. Once more, the fly swatter had struck his face. "I." At this moment, Ling Xian really felt as if his mind would blow up. With a swift step, his silhouette flickered, and 5 illusory figures appeared on the dueling platform, making it difficult for one to discern which was true and which was false. As a combat master, he had been through plenty of battles. Even though he felt humiliated by the 2 consecutive slaps, he knew better than to allow his emotions to dictate his actions. While his opponent was dressed in a bizarre get-up, it was apparent at this point that he possessed superior fighting prowess. Thus, he immediately executed his strongest movement technique. Artful Steps of 7 Spectre. It was a Saint Intermediate tier battle technique, and if perfectly executed, it could generate 7 lifelike illusions of 1 to confound one's opponent. While its power was beneath that of the bolt lightning palm, its reputation far exceeded the latter. Ever since he successfully mastered the technique, there had been none who had been able to break his Artful Steps of 7 Spectre through skill. 5 Illusions. He has already refined his Artful Steps of 7 Spectre to an incredible level, such that even I can't accurately discern his true figure within the illusions. Hall Master Zhao Yi remarked while stroking his beard. But once again, before he could finish his words, "Pa!" And once again, the fly swatter struck Ling Xian's face squarely. "Ah!" Flying into a frenzy, Ling Xian hastened his footsteps, making his movements even more indiscernible to the eye. "Pa! Pa! Pa!" But even so, 3 consecutive strikes still landed accurately on Ling Xian's face. It was as if Jiao Tan could see right through the illusions. Seeing how his comrade was being slapped time and time again without laying a single finger on his opponent's body, a combat master from Chongyuan Empire could not hold himself back any longer and shouted, "Ling Xian, since he is using a weapon, use your sword too." "All right." Knowing that the fellow before him was a tough nut to crack, Ling Xian flicked his wrist and whipped out a Saint Lotier sword. Flicking the sword furiously, a relentless barrage of sword chi burst forth, instantly covering the entire dueling platform. Freezing Rain Sword Intent. That's the unique sword intent that Ling Xian comprehended while standing under the winter rain when he was 23. No one has ever succeeded in dodging it before. Hall Master Zhao Yi commented proudly, but once again, before he could finish his words, Jiao Tan, who was surrounded by the barrage of sword chi, raised his fly swatter nonchalantly and "Pa! Pa! Pa!" Yet another 3 consecutive slaps. At this point, Ling Xian's face was already swollen red from all the slapping. Voila! Furious, Ling Xian drove his sword forward and sent sword arts of all kinds toward Jiao Tan. However, Jiao Tan easily avoided all of Ling Xian's attacks as if a butterfly flitting through a field of flowers. And more importantly, his fly swatter never stopped moving throughout. Pa! 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 It was a steady and rhythmic melody, sounding surprisingly like an orchestra. This. The 3 hall masters widened their eyes in disbelief, unable to believe what they were seeing. Even Hall Master Xing, Division Head Liao, and the others could not process what exactly was going on. They had witnessed Zhang Xian's training regime with their own eyes, and they had nearly been convinced that it was a prank. And yet, how could Jiao Tan undergo such a huge change, as if a caterpillar metamorphosed into a butterfly? Incredible, I never thought that fly swatters would make such powerful weapon. That's only because of Jiao Tan's exceptional control. I saw him hunting down flies inside the toilet, and he could even accurately strike a fly's front legs without hurting the rest of its body. What? Is that true? Given how small and nimble flies are, is it really possible to do it to such an extent? If that's really true, the precision of his control is truly frightening. A couple of Qingyuan combat masters discussed as they watched the duel. Hearing the conversation among the combat masters, Division Head Liao smacked his thigh and exclaimed in realization, "Ah, I get it now." Division Head Wei turned his head and asked, "What did you get?" "Jiao Tan is a genius of our martial arts division," Division Head Liao explained, "but due to the huge variety of battle techniques he has cultivated, he isn't focused in any of them, and this has prevented him from drawing out his full fighting prowess." It might seem nonsensical for Principal Zhang to have instructed him to hunt down flies, but there's actually a deeper meaning behind it. Every single fly moves in a unique trajectory, and in order to strike it accurately, one has to closely observe its movements and predict it in advance. More importantly, this training served to enhance his focus and rid his recklessness. With greater focus, he is now able to immerse himself into the battle technique he is executing and bring forth its maximum strength. This. Division Head Wei fell into deep thought. That did seem to make sense. As a genius of the martial arts school, Jiao Tan was an extremely proud individual. He would surely find hunting down flies to be a deeply demeaning and unengaging task. However, if he could overcome this part of himself, his state of mind could be elevated to greater heights, and this would be beneficial in his execution of battle techniques as well. It was due to his incredible focus that no matter how Ling Xian altered his movements, he was unable to escape Jiao Tan's swatter. Since he was even able to accurately strike a fly's legs, there was no reason he could not evade and strike something as big as a human. Pa 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 pa. The sound gradually crescendoed. Stop. I admit defeat. It did not take long before Ling Xian had used all of his battle techniques, and yet, he did not even manage to nick the other party's body. Realizing that it was impossible for him to win, he could only surrender miserably. At this moment, his face resembled nothing like a human's. It was swollen so badly that it resembled a donut. Qingyuan Empire Combat Master Hall's Jiao Tan is the victor. Since Ling Xian had already admitted defeat, the referee could only award the victory to Jiao Tan. Voila! A well-built young man leaped onto the stage. I am Bai Sun from the Qianyun Empire Combat Master Hall. My cultivation is at St. Tu Dan Primary Stage, and I would like to challenge the experts of the Qingyuan Empire Combat Master Hall as well. My cultivation is at St. Tu Dan Primary Stage as well. I'll be your opponent, Shi Hao said as he walked onto the stage. Bai Sun is the genius of Qianyun Empire Combat Master Hall's fist division. His steel fists are known to be invincible among his peers. I don't think that cleaner stands much of a chance against him. Cough cough, he's not a cleaner. He's actually the genius of our inner breath division, Shi Hao. As the duo walked up the stage, the combat masters of both combat master halls could not help but clench their fists nervously. Hall Master Xing, how is the strength of this combat master of yours? Hall Master Lu Qinshan asked curiously. Just a moment ago, everyone had thought that the Qingyuan Empire Combat Master Hall had already given up on themselves, but the overwhelming prowess that Jiao Tan had displayed had really opened their eyes. At this point, it would have been truly foolish of them to continue underestimating the Qingyuan Empire Combat Master Hall. I don't know either. Hall Master Xing shook his head. Principal Zhang's training regime was simply too bizarre. Even someone as experienced in combat as him could not comprehend the rationale behind it at all. To instruct the proud genius of the Inner Breath Hall to clean the toilet bowls throughout the Inner Breath division. If things went wrong, Shi Hao's fighting prowess might even decline instead. It's impossible for that lad to beat Bai Sun, the head of the Qianyun Empire Combat Master Hall, Wei Qianshu, remarked proudly. I have absolute confidence in him. He's my direct disciple, and there has never been anyone who could match him in the field of fist arts. There's just no way your combat master will be able to win against him. Hoo. While the hall masters were chatting, the battle on the dueling platform had already begun. With the opportunity to train in the Sword Lagoon of the Qiancheng Empire on the line, Bai Sun had no intention of holding back at all. From the very start, he threw out a fist with his full strength harnessed in it. Just as the fist was about to strike Shi Hao, the latter suddenly raised his hand and scraped the other party's face forcefully, reminiscent of how he had scraped the toilet bowls with his feather duster throughout the Combat Master Hall over the past 3 days. You! Seeing this, flames of fury lit up in Bai Sun's eyes. With a furious roar, he sent another powerful fist forward. The fist wielded astounding might that caused a deafening sonic boom. However, before it could reach Shi Hao, the latter raised his hand once more and swiped Shi Hao's face forcefully, digging out a huge lump of dirt while doing it. You! How long has it been since you last washed your face? Shi Hao disdainfully wiped his hand on his shirt. Bai Sun. With a livid expression, Bai Sun swiftly stepped back and equipped his knuckle duster before charging forward once more. You bastard, I'll kill you. The combat masters of the fist division relied on knuckle dusters to draw forth greater strength from their fist arts. On the other hand, seeing that his opponent had drawn his weapon, Shi Hao also unhesitatingly flicked his wrist, and a feather duster appeared in his hand. Glacier Smashing Fist. With a furious bellow, a brilliant light flashed from the knuckle duster, and Bai Sun thrust his fist forward furiously, seemingly intending to utterly destroy the figure before him. But just as the fist was shooting forward, still a distance away from connecting, Bai Sun suddenly saw something flying toward him with a speed reminiscent of a streak of lightning. Before he could process what was going on, a feather duster had already been stuffed into his mouth before swishing around. In an instant, a harmony of indescribable flavors filled his mouth. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.